Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world. This is the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast, brought to you by Box 1971, where we're changing the culture of the fire service one fireman at a time. We are coming to you from an undisclosed location in West Virginia. We're going to do something kind of unique to this podcast. We're actually going to name this podcast, and it's going to be named Project Greek Island. I am joined in the firehouse this evening by a few special guests. First off, our own instructor, Frenchie Matt Peltier. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful this evening. How are you?
I am good, qu'est-ce que c'est? Is that how they say it in French? How is your name actually said? Is it
Peltier.
Peltier?
Now, like my uncle, his name is Francois Denoyes Peltier.
I like it when you say that.
No,
Sitting. What are you smoking this evening, big boy?
I have a Casa Magna from Juan Goncalves. Give this to me when we were in Miami at 8th Street Cigar there next to Versailles.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolute
I was
cigar.
saving it for another good occasion, and I couldn't think of one better than this, and it is amazing.
It is amazing.
It is.
So that is from Absolute Cigar, Casa Magna, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. We are joined this evening by Captain Jason Boone. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Jeremy. How are you?
Well, buddy, I'm going to be honest with you. We did a day of training. We had some live fire. Knowledge was conveyed. Some receptive people, a lot of good questions this afternoon, a lot of good reps. So life is good. We just had a belly full of Mexican food.
We did.
You did. Past tense did have a belly full, huh?
Exactly. That's exactly how it was.
And joined by our other little buddy, WV.
Yes, sir.
How are you, buddy?
Doing great.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
What are you smoking on over there?
It is a Gurkha Ghost.
A Gurkha Ghost.
It sure is.
All right.
It's bigger than him.
It is. For those of you that don't know, WV that's a name given by the one and only Mike Perrone of Firehouse Innovations Corporation. And when he saw you, he saw you just a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He would say, WV.
Yeah.
He screamed at you across the training ground as you came and took some training reps.
Absolutely. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And I got to know a story before we introduce our last guy. I have heard I want to hear the story about his title and his rank, if you don't mind sharing with us, Matt.
Well, he is a battalion chief that we're getting ready to introduce. So we call him, just battalion and, the last two numbers of his unit. But years ago, we were at a training and here in the state and had some outside instructors. We had a battalion chief with us from Baltimore, one from, I think it was the Metropolitan Airport Authority, and one guy just like, oh, man, that Bat-len chief's just awesome. Just like, what? Oh, he really knows his stuff. I'm like, all right, let's back up there. Who is it? That Bat-len chief. What the hell's a Bat-len chief? You know the Bat-len chief. Battalion chief? Did you just like embarrass? I hope to God you didn't call him a Bat-len chief. Did you embarrass us? He just dumbfounded look. I guess. Next day it was battalion.
So the crazy thing is that you're telling a story about somebody misspeaking, and you're the one that needs a translator when we go places.
That's true.
Hey, learn West Virginian or don't.
Learn West Virginian or don't. Well, without further ado, the one and only Bat-len chief, Matt Carver. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
It's good to see you, friend. What are you smoking on over there? That looks expensive.
Romeo Y Juliet.
Romeo and Julieta.
Julieta.
Yeah, all right. So that's a reserve. You pay big money for that?
No, a buddy of mine from Cincinnati gave that to me.
Oh, the Natty Skyline Chili.
Yep.
Wow.
Chili capital of the world.
It's not really good chili either.
No, it's not. It's terrible.
The hot dogs are terrible. Oh, well, I am smoking on our good friend Tony Peach's Fiore di Seri Maduro Mini. That is like my go-to daily smoke. That is what I'm having this evening, and I love to enjoy this cigar. And if you need to buy any cigars, you need to find Absolute Cigar down on 8th Street in Miami. I will tell you, the service that you'll get from Andy and his people is unparalleled. Over $100, they'll ship to you for free. So if you spend $100, you buy a half wheel of cigars, guess what? It's free shipping. It's a great thing. So this podcast was kind of brought together by some conversations that firemen have around kitchen tables and on the bumper and whatnot. And Jason, you kind of brought up some points, and I said, let's put this into a podcast.
That's true, yep.
So we got Matt on board, and we got his translator here, Eddie. And so we've got somebody to be able to talk to us. You know, the only real educated one in the room is the Bat-len chief himself. You know, he's squared away with his haircut, and he's got his glasses on his forehead, and he looks just like the chief. And if you ever want to see a good chief point, he has a great chief point. Like when he points to go do something, he doesn't even have to say anything. But I wanted to jump in, and we'll just kind of do a around the table, like around the world. I want to know what got you started in this service. What got you here, Matt? Like what preempted you to come to the firehouse for the first time and to make this your vocation?
It was just, you always saw the doors open, people hanging out, looked like you had a good time. You just started hanging out one day and, you know, never really left and never looked back. It's definitely been a family like no other. You do fight like family at times. But you make up in the end, go about your day, go about your shift. Kept me out of a lot of trouble.
The fire department did.
It did. I'd probably be in jail, out spotlighting or drinking and driving, just something like.
You're going to have to explain spotlighting for the people that live in the city.
So spotlighting is you ride around back roads, see deer, shine a spotlight on them, shoot them with 22, run, grab the deer, get in the truck, and get out of there. Never done it.
You want me to translate?
I saw a video one time on YouTube. I was like, this is appalling.
You were just using that as an example.
Exactly. But so kept me out of trouble. Didn't go out, didn't want to party because, you know, especially after I got my Fire One cert, it's like, oh man, I can't do this. I might miss the big one. You know, oh, we might have a fire, or we might have a car wreck, and that's just how it was. And just kept training, getting more into it, and learned a lot. Met a lot of nice people along the way, and looked back, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Spotlighting to the firehouse. That's all I got out of that.
In trouble or out of trouble.
Well, what does I've been interested to hear this, Boone. What I know that you've got some things to say about what got you into this job. What got you here?
You know, really, it's, you know, who wouldn't want to do something like this? It's fun, like you know, like Matt said, it's we're family, but it was the first thing that got me into it was, you know, it's cool. You know, who doesn't want to ride in a fire truck? You know, we did it as kids in school. You know, they'd come in, the fire service would come in and, you know, do fire prevention, and, you know, you grew up doing things like that, you know, in school, and, hey, I want to do that. Yeah, it's great that, you know, you can go out and help people, but it has kept me out of a lot of trouble. It's got me in some trouble, to be honest with you.
What kind of trouble you gotten into, Frank?
You know, I've been in the chief's office a few times when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Now you're in the chief's office all the damn time.
Well, true, but, you know,
But for good
but
reason.
I'm not in trouble.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeremy. I mean, that's the thing. But
You kind of help run the ship.
eh,
You kind of help.
somewhat, I
Day
guess.
to day.
Day-to-day stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Pencil pusher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody better than you, bud.
Yeah.
You've got the best manicured hands at the table.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
No, that's interesting that you did you start immediately into a career department, or did you start
No,
volunteering?
I started volunteer.
Okay.
I've been with my volunteer department for 27 years.
27 years.
27 is a long
Goddamn,
time.
You're long in the tooth, bud.
It doesn't seem like it's been 27 years, but
Yeah, it's a hell of a ride, isn't it?
it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, Eddie, your mustache is coming in pretty damn strong.
I've been working on it for a while.
Yeah. Like how long? Like 6 years?
You got a new cat.
You got a new
Yeah,
You don't have to take that sitting down. You can stand up and take it. It's
I
fine.
understand. I can see better that way.
Yeah. You got a view.
Yeah.
So what got you involved?
So at the end of the day, I think we all know that helping people is the best part of this job. But, you know, I'm a junkie for the lights and sirens, the adrenaline of it. I wanted to see some cool stuff and go to some cool training and, you know, have an opportunity to be something bigger than myself, and it's definitely gave me that.
I think we're going to have to get you a booster seat.
Yeah, phone book.
Do they let you drive the apparatus?
Occasionally, yeah.
All right. I didn't know if that was, if they gave you a booster seat like for your son or what they did?
Yeah, there's been a lot of jokes about it, jumping in and finding booster seats in the seats and everything.
You're the
else.
asshole that always leaves the seat all the way forward, aren't you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So a big old country boy like Peltier comes in, or Peltier comes in. He has trouble. He hits the steering wheel.
That's the first thing I do: slam a seat back, slam a steering wheel up,
Pimp.
and I'm good to go.
That's fair. Well, the old Bat-len chief, what got you involved?
Well, my dad was chief in the department I'm in now, and
Okay.
so then my older brother got into it, and then when I was in high school, my senior year, I decided after I graduate high school, I'm going to get into it.
Okay.
So I got into it and just fell in love with it. The family atmosphere, the brothers of the fire service, and it's something I just loved and just wanted to stay with it. And here I am 31 years later and still doing it.
Yeah, trucking along.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're out there today. You were getting some reps in with some new members that were training and getting stuff in. It was good to see some old heads out there sharing some knowledge. That was always good to see. For me, I got involved. I was the grandson of a fire chief, and that's how I got involved. And I'd always wanted to be a part of that. And oddly enough, my grandfather is from West Virginia, from Parkersburg, home of Lloyd Lehman, who gave us that stupid shipboard firefighting stuff. And, that works great on ships, but it doesn't work great in residential fires that we have to ventilate and move smoke around. So, but that is, I grew up going to the firehouse. I loved being in the firehouse, loved the camaraderie. I loved being at mealtime. I always thought that was the best time. And then learning like what we're doing right now at the kitchen table. A lot of conversations can happen here, and a lot of the world's problems can get started or solved here. So that is what drew me in as I grew up and got older. One thing that I have noticed over the past 23 years is that the struggles in the fire service. And, one thing that always comes up, and I think Boone can attest to this probably the most, is money. That is the one thing. 90% of any career fire department their budget goes to personnel, to paying the career people, which also directly relates to staffing and manpower issues. So I kind of want to get your guys' take, just from yonder hills of West Virginia, of what you guys struggle and face here, because I don't think that it's much different than what people face in North Carolina or Indiana or Arizona or Texas. We typically think of Texas as a very rich state. There are fire departments that operate off $30,000 a year in Texas. And that's kind of crazy to think about. And then we sit and bitch about that, our turnout gear is 8 years old or some crazy shit like that. So I kind of want to talk about some struggles. So, Chief, we're going to start with you. What's one struggle that you see? You could talk about finance, you could talk about staffing, manpower, anything you want. What do you see as a struggle today in the fire service?
I think today is the younger generation that we have is kids. I don't know if I want to say kids, young adults just don't have what they want to do. They don't know what they want to do in life, and I think they have other things that they want to do other than getting involved with getting dirty, just working hard at certain things. Kids today will want to get in computers and do that kind of stuff. And I think that's the problem we have today. The youth is just a little bit different than it was when I started.
Sure. I think that the whole thing about that is that the world has changed so much with the advent of, one, the internet, and two, the cell phone. And those two combined have become a driving force in what has changed what we do. I mean, would you agree or disagree with that, Chief?
I agree.
Yeah. It used to be, I told somebody I was going to say it, so here I go. It used to be a bunch of firemen reading pussy magazines in the firehouse, right? And now it's a bunch of pussies reading fireman magazines. And that is what we are facing in today's society, is people want to be on TikTok or Faceplant or Instaface or whatever the hell that's Twitter in. I know that they all have the real names, Twitter, Instagram, and all that. I just don't really care much for them, even though we use the forums to spread information to folks. That's one thing that I have seen that has changed things immensely for us as a job. Eddie, what do you see?
There's a lot of things that departments in rural areas are really struggling with. One of the biggest ones, I think, is recruitment and retention. And I'm the youngest one here. I can speak from that younger generation. It's hard to get people to come out without incentive anymore. Volunteering your time isn't a popular thing anymore. I don't think we do enough community outreach.
Sure.
I think if we would get out in the streets more, especially these smaller volunteer departments, I know it's hard for them, for
Right.
sure, but if we can get out in the public more and really show people what we do while we're here, I think that would help.
Do you see a balance, though, Eddie, with how when you say you got to have 100 hours of training, let's just throw an even number out. You got to have 100 hours of training, and then, God forbid, you run first responder calls. Now you have to have an extra, what is it, Boone?
150 hours for, it's like 150 hours for EMT.
Okay, so you got to have that training, and then, we got to have all these other trainings, right? Bloodborne pathogens for those that aren't, and then CPR and so on. And then we got to run calls on top of that, and then we got to make a fundraiser because Lord knows we never get enough to function off of.
Not to mention these volunteer guys are working full-time jobs.
Yeah, so
besides that.
so how do we go about? I know that FEMA has a great program to put signs out in front of firehouses. It's an easy grant to write, and that really spreads awareness for those that pay attention to that. Social media doesn't cost anything; it's pretty quick to a quick hit. But I think if we had good videos, maybe something that was high-paced, short attention spans.
Yes.
Hey, this could be you, and make it a good video, not just a bunch of jacklegs. Maybe that's a way.
Right. And finding training. I think that's a big issue in some of these rural areas is, for the people that do want to do the hands-on part of the training, finding classes, I don't think they're promoted and advertised as much as they probably should be.
Sure. What's the furthest you've gone personally for training? Like how many hours away from home?
6.
6 hours away?
Yeah.
And you're a new dad, right? So
Yes.
that's tough, right? But this is your career, and you want to be better at it
Right. Yeah, I'm just a student of the job. You learn every day.
every day.
Everything you can take in, especially at my age. And just
Sure.
take in everything you can, learn from the older guys.
So speaking of older guys, what does Boone want to weigh in on this? Come on, Paul.
Struggles in the fire service.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things is in West Virginia, I think, is financing. You got these volunteer departments that, roughly get $50,000 a year, somewhere around there, from the state.
Sure.
$50,000 doesn't go very far.
No.
When you're talking about keeping up with training, keeping up with your firehouse, keeping up with equipment, gear, all
Somebody
that.
has an accident and tears a bumper off or
Exactly.
a mirror.
Exactly. I mean, and then, like the other guy said, is recruitment. How do you get the new guys? How do you get somebody to want to do this? Firefighter 1, for example, it's 120 hours, something like that. So your young guy that comes in and joins, he walks in the door and you say, okay, fill out this application. Now you have a year to get your Firefighter 1. It's 120 hours.
Right.
So this young guy's also working. Your younger generation, they just started that job. What are they working? They're probably working weekends.
Sure.
When is that training? It's weekends.
Right.
Yeah, you have it a couple of evenings a week. How can you change that? I'm really not sure how you can change the training. I don't think training needs to be any less than what we have now. I think it needs to be more. I just think one of the biggest things here in West Virginia probably is money. How do you do it? How do you, like I said, $50,000 a year doesn't go very far when you're talking about buying gear, SCBAs, trucks, and then having to get that training. You got your guys that, you say, okay, well, I need you to get 120 hours, but also I need you to come out, every other weekend for a fundraiser.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot that you're asking somebody
For nothing.
for nothing, and it's something that you got to want to do it. You got to
Right.
love it. You know.
Once the bug bites you, you're bit.
Exactly.
Oh, you really are.
I'll tell you one thing
No
that
doubt.
chaps my ass is these people that sell the gas monitors and SCBAs and PPE. They jack them prices up,
They do. They really do.
and I have never understood why. You know, we've always got to pay them guys extra, and you're like, but I can get it off the internet for $50 cheaper.
Yeah.
I may not have it tomorrow, but $50 when you're spreading that around, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And what really gets you is shipping.
Oh, shipping's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got SCBAs coming through the mail, for instance, or everything we do is heavy, so it's not exactly light. But you know, these poor agencies.
Yep.
You know, I think you're blessed to have a decently funded, and I'm not saying overly funded, agency. All of you actually are parts of good agencies that are decently funded, but the struggle's still there for staffing. And if you can't pay people, you know, you guys are compensated pretty well, but if you can't pay people in other areas and you can't get volunteers to come out, how does the truck get out the door? How does the engine get on the road? And that's one thing that,
A lot of times it just doesn't. You have to rely on the next agency.
yeah, and it's, you know, it's a shame that that's where we're at in 2023, is that we're having to rely on that, and it's not fair. It's not equitable to the taxpayer. Is kind of where my mindset is. Matt, what do you think?
Oh, I agree. I mean, your tax base is already expecting something out of you for being there in your town, your county, whoever's funding you. And so if you're 5 miles, it doesn't matter if you're 5 miles, 6 miles, 20 miles. If that other department's there when you get there and they call for help, that's one thing. But if you're the only truck at that community seeing is from a neighboring agency, I'd be a little upset because, hey, what am my tax dollars going to?
Sure.
You know, and I understand in volunteer service, people have to make a living. They have to. If not, what are they going to do?
Right.
And it is a double-edged sword, because if they're not working, they can't do anything. They might not be able. They're not going to be able to volunteer while because they're trying to put food in their bellies.
Sure.
And it's the only way it's going to go. There's going to be no drastic change for a good while. I don't know what the solution is. No one really knows. You know, talked about incentives for volunteering to help take a load off of people. Like, you know, maybe if you're making meetings or drills, being a upstanding member, putting in your worth. You know, maybe the community you live in, if you have city water, all right, you don't have a city water bill.
Phew, boy, some
Hey.
communities that would be a
Hey.
blessing.
Wow.
Right, there's one I know. It probably saving $300 a month.
Right.
I got well water; it's free. I don't need any incentives. I'm just here for the cigar, but
You sound like
camaraderie.
you sound like the Bat-len chief.
All
Let me
right.
throw something at you. What do you see beyond those financial struggles? I see something that glares at me when we go to a lot of agencies, and that is the age of the members. There is a lot of, and I'm not talking guys less than 50. I'm not talking guys at 55. I'm talking about the guys that have to get a running start to get in the rig, that don't want to get out because they don't know if they can get back up. That's a huge, huge, huge problem. If we took away, I would be interested to know if we actually did like a full FEMA, U.S. Fire Administration study and got actual raw data, what would come out of that? How many members are over the age of 65 that are currently in the United States Fire Service? That would be one thing I would be curious about. Because it seems that when you go to a lot of these agencies that there are people that are retirement age and this becomes their hobby. And so while it's admirable, it's somewhat not safe.
And you run into the issue too of, you know, during the week, those guys are already retired.
Right.
So during the day, during business hours, you're probably not going to get a big response from your working age males. They're going to be at work doing their full-time job, so you might only get these older gentlemen that come out. And, how much are they going to be able to do?
Well, before we piss everybody off, we need working age females in there too.
Females, males, yeah.
My wife will have your ass hide strapped to the Santa Fe.
My mistake.
She'd outwork most men.
But I mean, if it's that older guy and he's got a couple young bucks on the truck, he'd be a wealth of knowledge for him.
Yeah.
He can stand there and do that 4-finger point. You need to go here and do this. You need to go there and do that. Yeah. 'Cause nothing pointing back at him. He's telling you, hey, go over here and vent this. Hey, throw that ladder there, force that door. I'm pointing at you.
I'm not that old yet.
That's the Bat-len chief's job.
I'm just thinking about you need to maybe adopt that knife hand instead of the point, even though your point is amazing. I've seen it. It's really good.
And I think like riding assignments, paid, volunteer. Volunteers, it'd be harder. You have to make it work. But riding assignments, so whoever comes in for that call, say you got 30 guys in your department, break them up into their own little platoons. So you're on this platoon 1, platoon 2. I'm on 2. I'm on this truck. This is my riding assignment on that board. I'm the outside vent man, chauffeur. So that way they know what their job is when they pull up to a ripper on fire, good car wreck or something. They know, hey, I'm cutting. Hey, I'm spreading. I'm the outside vent man. I need to get to the back. I need to be eyes for the IC.
Sure.
Need to take a ladder with me. So, hey, I see I got somebody out here hanging out a window. He's going to be a VEIS.
Yeah, don't forget that eye.
Can't forget that eye.
Got to isolate.
That blows my mind. That hey, you go in, you vent, you enter, you search, you isolate, you search.
Can't we just say VESS?
VES.
Shut the door.
Yeah, VES. Yeah. And then, like, you read about, learn about, do it, and they tell you, you isolate this door. But so many people had trouble isolating that door. I don't know if, just caught up in the moment of doing the drill or doing it in real life on a call. Hey, they're not shutting that door. We better throw an eye in there. But it works.
But, Matt, you mentioned volunteer career. Is there really a difference? I mean,
to the public?
No, to the public. The public wants someone that is trained, knows what they're doing, and shows up. Me myself, I need you. I want someone to show up to my house that's ready to do cowboy shit.
So my whole
For my
point.
family.
My whole point is we shouldn't be, in the eyes of the public, we're no different.
No, because a lot of them don't know. They don't know the difference between a paid department and a volunteer department. Someone come in here, y'all aren't paid. Oh, that's terrible. Well, everyone's paid where I'm from. Well,
That here ain't there.
Yeah,
So my point I'm getting across is we all should be trained
equally.
Exactly.
I will tell you something Phil has said. When we travel, we get a lot of time together. If we're flying, we usually sit together. If we're driving, obviously we try to ride in the same car because the discussions they're phenomenal. But he talks about leadership and officer development. And he thinks, in Phil's world, that an officer should be able to be unplugged from his engine or truck and be able to be plugged in somewhere else and plugged in. Much like Army soldiers are all trained to be, they all know how to fire a gun. Marines all know how to, be Marines. We don't have that standard because it varies from state to state. Some states have a state academy. Some states have regional training. Some have what we have in North Carolina, the regional or the community college system, not regional, the community college system with 100 counties, and I think it's 80-something community colleges. So with that instructor set, you're getting 80 different sets of interpretation, and there's nobody, even though the Fire Academy, the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland is great, I don't think that that's the standard, like when you look at the Department of Justice for the FBI, and they go to the police academy in Quantico. I think that's where it's at, right?
Which police academy?
The FBI.
Yeah, FBI.
Quantico.
Yeah, so the standard isn't the same. And I don't understand why it's not the same. Why don't we have that same standard? We should be able to take a guy from Montana that's not a USAR guy and be able to plug him in. There should be a level of training that, he may be very well versed in wildfire, right? But
Not know a thing about structural firefighting.
But he should be able to be a boss and be able to get the task level work done.
So what we're saying is fire's fire. Fire doesn't know whether you're
I don't know. Do you know some secret that I don't know?
volunteer or paid, correct?
Nobody's ever stopped me, Boone. Nobody's ever stopped me as I've stepped off the rig in the front or the rear and said, "Hey, are you being paid to be here?" Because nobody cares.
Exactly.
No, and people have a inherent knowledge of where they live, if it's a volunteer fire department or not, but they don't know all the time. Who's coming? Like you just said, mutual aid, auto aid, those things you don't know who's coming. So, and then you think about, like, to Eddie's point, that you've got the guys during the day that most people are off, got real jobs, or the days of closing up the shop downtown and being able to go get when what the old timers called the fire whistle blow are over.
Yeah.
They're gone. And so what do we do in the middle of the day when we've got to go cut a car apart or we've got to go put a fire out? That's everybody just keeps thinking that it's just going to keep going, and it's not. It's
I can remember when I first started at my volunteer station, we had guys that they were, they had full-time jobs. This has been 20 years ago, but when they come out during the day, their boss, whatever, would say, "Hey, go." That was more important than what they were doing. And a lot of times they got paid
sure.
for answering that call from wherever they worked.
Right.
And
Meaning their employer paid them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Because it was
and-
for the good of the community.
Exactly. And we just don't have that now.
Yeah, everything's about a bottom line, it seems like.
I get it. I
Dollar
do.
sign.
Yeah.
And exactly. It's the same way with training. It's not, hey, this department needs this training. It's, oh, wait a minute, we want X amount of money for this training. We'll come and do it for that.
Sure.
So, once again, that goes back to financing. Like I said, it's roughly $50,000 a year in West Virginia, and it doesn't go very far.
And I think, in North Carolina, I can only speak for the agencies I've been a part of. I think the volunteer agencies get 60-something thousand apiece.
Mm-hmm.
But now the county commissioners have come back and said, okay, y'all want more money, y'all want paid people, here's what we got to do. And they've come out with a list of demands, and I think they're reasonable, and I'm not going to share them here because they were shared pretty much in confidence. But the point of it all is that their current contract reads only for fire protection only. And if you want more money, comes more responsibility. So if you can read between the lines on what that means with our growing trend in EMS, right? So there's got to be a balance, and we have to have leaders that understand that balance. I think that's the one thing that is left behind is that we think we have a bad habit in today's society to put our hands out and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. And then when somebody says, well, what are you doing for your money? You're not able to back that up. Like when we were talking earlier, Boone, before the podcast, we were talking about, when they ask this question, what's your next answer? And
Exactly.
when they question that answer, what's your answer to that question? And I don't know if all of our leaders are prepared for that. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's, I don't know. There's no, they always say don't bitch about a problem without a solution. Here's the problem. We can't sit here and give a solution for everybody's unique situation. But, like what we talked about earlier, using social media to your advantage for recruitment and retention. Recognize or spotlight a certain individual. Let's just pick on the Bat-len chief. See, I almost really said it. If we say, hey, this is the Bat-len chief, this is how many years of service he has, this is what he does, this is his wife, this is his family, and this is what he does for our community. Over the past how many ever years, this is how many hours of training he's logged for this community. And then you come over here and you say, this is Joe Blow Frenchy fireman, and this is what he does. And one thing that I think that a lot of people don't understand, they think that we show up at the firehouse and we play cards all day or checkers because that's
Cards. That's nurses. Don't get us confused.
well, I've heard cards a lot. And I mean, we did play. What did we play down in? Oh, yeah, that's right. You weren't there.
We won't go there.
I think we played Phase 10. Yeah, we paid $6.44 for Phase 10 to sit around the kitchen table just so we could say we did it. But if you highlight people and kind of spotlight them, that gives them some recognition. Maybe that'll give them some buy-in. And it doesn't really cost anything. We have pictures of all of our members. You put up something, you get a little blurb. and then you get to talk with your people a little bit. You have an interview. Not like an interview like you're interviewing for a job, but an interview for information, and it opens up a channel of communication. That should be relatively cheap. Plus, if you're not using social media to your advantage, shame on you, because you can use that for your ISO, for community risk reduction, because you can get true data from a geographical region, that will give you data of who's interacted with your post. So, most times when we post something, it's check your smoke alarms, or, no 2 ways out, exit drills in the home.
Clear out around a fire hydrant. in
Yeah.
your house,
All that stuff counts. So if
Yeah.
we use that to our advantage, one, the public sees us, but two, if we can use it to communicate, hey, we're flowing hydrants on this end of town. And a lot of people, even though this is simple and it's things that we all do around this table, the other folks may not think about. That's why we're discussing it.
And one thing I used to do is VFIS on their website.
Sure.
Every month they have something you can print off, like a little flyer, fire safety, whatever. And I would print 25 of them off or something, and it'd let you add it. Put your department name in there. I'd take them to City Hall and just set them on the counter, and a lot of the girls in City Hall would take them, and a few people in the community. I'd ask them, anybody taking those? Yeah, there are a few here and there, and that was one thing I got out of the habit of doing. Just got caught up in everything else and other duties, and
You got a boss that needs results.
yeah, and fell to the wayside, and I've revisited that a few times. Like, I should do that again.
This is the best job in the world. Why don't we advertise it that way? I mean,
Yeah,
I agree.
Put the action shots out there. Say, if you want an opportunity to do something great for your community, great for yourself, this is it.
I recently, Phil and I conducted a training at a career agency, and we won't disclose the name to protect the guilty, but we went into the firehouse, and there are no pictures on the wall. None.
That's terrible.
Wow.
The only thing that was hanging were some helmets, the turtle shells, a couple nozzles. Around the TV were hose clamps, the old style hose clamps, and no pictures of any members. It felt very antiseptic, right? A very old firehouse that had been added onto, probably I would call it a Polish mansion, because it had been added onto probably 5 times. But it was, I look here at these pictures, and there are pictures of old rigs, old members, members that were in their I'll call it prime, action shots of, wrecks, fires. The liability of that is minimal. As long as you're not disclosing pertinent patient information, that stuff can be, and stuff that can actually be identified other than just a make model of a car. But as long as it doesn't have a date, why not share that? Remember that pin job we were on? Oh, man, that was an ass kicker. Because the kids that are coming up today, and yes, I say kids, they have instant gratification. The kids today, Chief, I think you can agree, will never know the struggle of having to go to Walmart or go to the Kmart and take their photos in and have to wait 5, 6, 7 days to get them back. And they'll never know that struggle of having to carry a 35 millimeter camera in your pocket that was disposable. Now they've got more
Instant gratification.
Yeah,
At their fingertips.
they've got more computing power than we sent people to the moon with. So at their fingertips, right? So now it's like instant, right? And then what can we do from a scene? Well, we can take that same photo and upload it to social media and perhaps get jammed up on that. That's something else that has jumped up and got a lot of people, is not having a strict social media policy. Sometimes it's good to take pictures of things. Like, hey, we did this on this fire, and this is why we did it. Here's a picture of why we did it. It's just buyer beware if you, take a picture of something that your phone can be seized as evidence.
Correct.
Yeah. So you don't want to get yourself bound up.
Something I've noticed too, you put these a massive amount of training hours on people when they're already working these full-time jobs. So you've got to manage to get everything that you need to teach these students in a set amount of time.
Yep.
How much time are we spending on fire department history, honestly? How much time do we spend in class on You know, this is why we do things the way that we do. This is where this comes from. You know, as a young guy, you don't hear about it much anymore unless you really go looking for it.
So
And I think that's sad.
So you're talking about culture.
Yeah,
Culture
absolutely.
of the fire service.
Absolutely. I think, you know, you hear older guys
Our
talk
grassroots
about,
where we came from.
you hear older guys talk about the fire service when they were coming up in it, and it kind of seems like a different world to me.
Yeah.
Than those stories.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, you know, the chief led with it, his father was chief, and then we ate supper this evening with another chief, and he was one of our instructors that's on this podcast. You do the math. Forgot his wallet conveniently, air quotes, and the chief had to buy his supper, and so he flipped open his wallet and he was pulling out his card, and I noticed a little old, beat up gold badge. I was like, dude, that's cool. And he's like, he looked at me, beamed with pride, and said, that was my dad's when he was the chief. And I was like, I looked right at him. He just had a grandson. He's walking and talking. I said, your grandson's going to fucking love that. And he's like, I know. You know, that type of, you know, just like with you, and I don't mean this in a bad way, you're a legacy fireman. You know, your family lineage is here, right? And now we don't have that a lot. We have a transient population that likes to move around and doesn't mind moving. And, you know, they live a minimalist lifestyle, it seems like, you know, like antiques and things like that. They're gone. I mean, you think about it. You go into a new house. If you open the door to a new house, you can tell what generation lives there with no people in it.
True. Yeah.
And, you know, the newer, sleeker floor plans, as opposed to the old heavy oaks that the people in the 50s and 60s age
See,
bracket
I
like.
love that. I love that myself. You know, you were talking about fire stations earlier.
Sure.
The old subway tile, like bay floors.
Oh, tile wall culture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you want one with like shag carpet, things like that.
It might be a little hard to keep clean, but at least in the bunker, maybe. And when you get out of bed at 3 a.m., you feel it there between your toes. It'd be nice. But
If you're cold in the winter, boy, you can just rub your toes
I mean,
on it.
I'm in a lot of firehouses, and you were talking about the pictures. And that's one of the first things I do is I look around, like, oh, yeah, this looks like a pretty good house. Pictures everywhere, old equipment hanging on the wall or something. Everyone's proud of something in that station. And even with, like, you look at the Firehouse Design magazines that Firehouse Magazine puts out.
Sure.
I love looking at the new station, like, oh, man, it's badass, but they're all Taj Mahals, and a lot of them just don't have that character anymore. Like you said, they're a little antiseptic.
Yeah.
And so you come in. I saw pictures of a recent new build, and it was for here in West Virginia, and it was just like, wow, it's a nice little house, but like, it just didn't feel like home for someone that spends 24 hours there, 10 days a month. I'd have to do something to make it feel more at home.
Right. Right. Well, and it's definitely interesting. The one thing that we lack, I think, building firehouses is looking at the kitchen and how much time is truly spent there. I know a lot of emphasis is placed on big training rooms or movie theaters and good bunk rooms and such. I just need a place to lay my head, you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of emphasis is placed on things that don't matter, but in somebody's mind it does matter, and it's not really anyone's job to sit and judge, you know, who says what stays and what goes, except the man that wears 5 on the collar. One thing that you hit on earlier, Boone, and I kind of wanted to follow up, and I wanted to see what the group had to say. Eddie talked about younger people coming in. You talked about younger people coming in that are even middle-aged. Like Eddie's, I'm going to pick on you, Eddie.
Yes,
you know, you said you liked the lights and sirens aspect when you first got in, and then you found out that you really love this job.
Yeah.
You love forcing doors and going to the fire floor. And I think that's admirable. You know, everybody's got a reason to come in, and to find that passion's one thing. But how do we address members not wanting to answer non-emergency calls? How do we?
Well, I think that goes into your non-emergent stuff. I think that goes into fire departments are wanting more. You know, we're wanting people to join. We're saying, hey, we don't have enough money to finance this and that. But we're also saying, hey, we don't want to answer this. We don't want to answer this tree down. We don't want to answer this.
Department of Highways will get it.
Yeah, exactly. my way of thinking there is, who's to say that tree that fell, okay, they don't call us, fine. But who's to say that tree fell and then an hour later a car hits it? Or an hour later after that tree fell, we don't get a call on that same road.
And need to get to the other side,
Exactly.
2 blocks away.
Exactly.
Sure.
We could have been dispatched to that.
And I've driven the roads around here.
Yeah,
and sometimes you can't get there from here but that one way.
Exactly. So we're wanting to do less for more.
I think that's human nature. Would you agree?
It is, but I think that we're not thinking correctly. I don't get that. Is that tree the fire department's job? Depends on how you look at it. I can remember when I first joined here, that was rare. Matt, when he first got into the volunteer service, I'm sure it was rare for him.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, in the middle of a hurricane, I've been tacking tarps on people's roofs. And I was like,
that's
what
just-
the fuck are we doing out here?
That's something, but that's something that the fire department's kind of, that's what we do now. It's
Yeah.
part of our job.
Yeah, we go. The fire department will always show up.
Yeah. Call us, we're coming.
Yeah. That's
You know?
you may be 30, 40 minutes on an ambulance, but the fire department's coming.
Exactly.
And I'm
Yeah.
nothing against EMS.
No,
Nothing at all.
No. But with that, fire departments that's a lot of their job anymore. Is
Sure.
EMS. Whether we like it or not, we do it.
You're basically like a doctor now, aren't you?
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, it
Cake said so.
Cake. I did see a cake that said that you
it
were
did.
pretty much a
it
doctor.
did say that. Yeah. Said congrats or something like that.
Good luck finding the toenail.
Yeah. And
Did you ever find that corn chip?
No. And I'm hoping it was in the part that we never ate. But hey,
To put this into context, Boone just recently had to get his EMT, and he passed. I've never seen a grown man pace so much, but I'm glad you passed. I'm glad that's behind you and you can move on.
National Registry. I hate them.
You're not the only one.
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just an evil, necessary evil. Would that be the right way to say it? Yeah.
Evil questions.
Yeah.
You got 4 great answers,
You got to pick the best.
but only one's good enough.
I wished you'd have taken our advice when you did test, though. I wished you would have just shotgunned like 3 beers, walked in, and aced that bitch. I would have
It helps.
I would have made such a
Hey,
better
you know.
story. Can we just tell people you did that? Just Boone did it. Just
Nah, it
fucking
was- nah.
snozhed.
It was the medication.
Oh,
I had to be medicated.
yeah. It's like me going to the dentist. They have to knock me down with Valium. My wife loves it because I'm just loopy as shit. It's funny.
But it worked. Hey, whatever it takes.
Well,
I
let me-
did it.
She just likes the quiet.
She likes the quiet. Well, you met her. She's loud. She's loud, but she's good. It's interesting you brought up the tree down call, right? Because if you put that into context and into perspective, it could be ours, right? And nothing worse than you knew the tree was down and you didn't go do a damn thing about it. I'm not saying we should probably go out and ride around looking for trees down.
No.
But if somebody calls, I've been a part of a cat out of a tree. It was probably 100 feet up, and nothing like a good nozzle to get it down, and it fell, and we tried our best to get it down, and I don't know, 3 weeks before that, we climbed a ladder and got the cat out, and it was just I've never, but people have an expectation. I know that sounds funny, because the first thing that people always say is there's never a skeleton of a cat in a tree, and then I said that to the chief one day. And he's like, no, there was.
Yep.
And that argument's over, But when you talk about, I want to ask the chief's opinion on this, because if we are sending people out untrained, so let's just say we start doing lockouts. Let's just pretend that the 5 of us are a part of a fire department together. And we're going to start doing lockouts. What would be something that you would see that needs to happen before we embark on that journey of doing lockouts as a fire department? Like, do you see training? Do you need to see, do you want the city attorney involved, to have a waiver? Training members, not everybody knows how to operate a Slim Jim or a way to get in the car with the lockout kit, where you put the wedge in and everything. What would you see from a quasi, you're still on the line, but you're in an administrative role as well. What would you see coming down from you on high to do, like to train members? Do you see any need for any of that?
I think training is important for everything. I mean, that's definitely a necessity we have to have, is the
Sure.
training side of it.
So would you be comfortable with just saying tomorrow morning we flip the switch and we say, hey, we're starting doing lockouts. We're going to put AAA and all the towing companies out of business. And because that's what the taxpayer expects. And we're not going to train, we're not going to have a policy, and we're not going to contact our legal counsel and see if we can get a waiver. What about dangers of, is it that person's car? How do we identify that that's their car? What happens if it's a daughter driving a grandma's car? How do we, you see what I'm saying, where the liability comes in? Like, how do we mitigate that? Do you think there is a way?
I don't know. I mean, I think lawyers and stuff like that's got a lot of issues with some of the stuff that we deal with sometimes day to day.
Sure. Because what happens if you open up the car and it's a bunch of illicit shit in there?
Yeah.
Then what do you do? What do you do if the car is stolen and you didn't know?
Or you scratch the paint when you're trying to get in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, what if our insurance doesn't cover it because we didn't have a policy and procedure in place to protect us? These are things that I think about. I just wanted to get kind of your thoughts on if we should, we talk about the customer service aspect, and Chief Brunacini said one thing that was very true: just be nice. And while it is nice to go out and try to provide that service, I think there's also the portion of we just can't do that because it's not in our wheelhouse. Now, if somebody's medication's in there and they're a diabetic or something, I'm not there to judge their ability or inability of anything. But if they tell me that that's what's in there and they need it, then we got to get in there, right?
Yeah, I agree. If it's an emergency, situation, and it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, something to think about. But what are your thoughts specifically, Chief, on members not wanting to go on non-emergent calls or not having the same amount of? I get our posture's not going to change, our response posture. That is going to change, but our mindset and operational objectiveness of being safe and efficient is not going to change. But the speed in which we do it, what do you think about getting people that just come in the door and think that every time we go out the door is going to be a rip-roaring fire and meet their expectations? How do we corral that good energy into, hey, we know that this is a bullshit call, but we still have to go on it. You still got to put your turnout gear on. We still expect you to get off the rig with an air pack on. We expect you to have a tool in your hand, because one day that is going to happen and you're not going to be prepared. How would you handle that to get people to buy in? As a senior member, as a mentor, how are you going to counsel that younger member?
I would pretty much just say, look, this is our job. It's what we need to do. We're here for the community, and we're going to do what we can do to make it right, to make it, to do it.
Right. I mean, I don't particularly like running smells and bells calls or automatic fire alarms, but it's part of the job, right?
Yeah, that's just the job,
So you gotta get after it. Matt, what are your thoughts on trying to get people involved or getting that systemic problem? Because it is tough. Like if we need a lift assist, it's tough to get people out the door.
It is. And I'll be for everyone that's been involved in fire service, especially on the volunteer side. If you say you've heard, I've heard that call for a tree down, and you rolled everyone back to sleep. We've all been guilty of it more than once.
Absolutely. And if you're not, you're a damn liar.
Yeah. And again, there a lot of that mindset. Someone else will get it. Someone else will get it. For taking it back to our guys that have retired or there during the day, those are the ones you don't see out in the middle of the night on calls like that. And their thing is hey, I'm in bed. Let them younger guys I had it today. Let them younger guys will get it. In a way, I see their point, and they're right on that. But in the end, it's just got to be firm, fair, and consistent training to get everybody on the same page. Again, we talk about equal training between career volunteer staffing, and will what works for DC Fire work for Harrisburg? No. It's a different area. Different building construction in areas. Will what works here work best for, Pittsburgh? No. But still, I should be able to know to take care of this issue that they're going to face. Because, hey, look at East Palestine right now. Majority of
You're
it.
talking Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I jumped right over there. But that train, I have tracks in my area. A lot of places have tracks. There's some real bad, as you've all seen, there's some real bad shit out there on these rails. And it's all in the middle of the night, early AM hours when they move that stuff. That you look when the brakes went by, it was on the ring cam at one person's house, middle of the night. We could be faced with that tomorrow. God, I hope not, but it could happen.
Yeah, it could absolutely happen. And I think that what's one subject that we all hated? I embraced it. I made my weak point my strong point. But what's one thing we all hate as responders? We have to do it every year.
I don't mind it because I also embrace it, but I was going with EMS.
Well, I think the vast majority of people would agree with you, but where I was going was hazmat.
I knew right where
yeah.
you were going, and I love hazmat. I wish I did more as a tech.
I wish that I
Somewhere.
didn't do more as a
I
tech. Sometimes you've had your fill. I've had my fill of olive oil. I can't take no more. And I think that's a fair point. Eddie, do you got anything you want to contribute on this, or if you've already said something, or?
One thing, automatic fire alarms came up, and you see a lot of complacency a lot.
Sure.
We do this every day. We get these bells and whistles. They end up being nothing. I worked for an officer one time, and I was driving the engine, and he would make me start the pumps, pull my tank to pump, get everything ready like the building was on fire, even if there was nothing, even if we knew there was nothing. And it was just beating it into your brain, do it until you can't get it wrong kind of stuff.
Right.
That really helped me beat that complacency because now
Firm, fair, consistent.
Right. I always look at it as, usually it's nothing. But one of these days, it will be something. It will be the big one. And I don't want to be caught with my pants down when that happens.
Well, that's why you got to wear suspenders.
Touche.
And by wearing your suspenders, I mean put on your PPE. There's a lot of times that, you go to a call and you're like, hey, you're not even wearing your Nomex, you don't have a tool, you don't have your gear.
Hey, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, we all are, but we need to be better, right?
That's true.
And I think the five of us sitting at this table can agree that as a leader, as a formal leader or an informal leader, that people are watching, especially the chief. They're watching what he's doing. They're taking his lead. If he's calm, I'm calm. If he's chaotic, I'm fucking spastic, right? And running an incident, if we start in control, we stay in control. One thing that NASCAR has always said is that parking always dictates the tone of the event. So, like when their trucks park on track, they park a very specific way. We have a program in the United States called TIMS, and it's supposed to teach you how to park and how to respond on highway incidents, and yet for some reason, we just can't seem to get it down. And our primary function, there's a fire department not far from me. They say that their prime goal is to save lives, and I love it because it doesn't say we're going to respond to house fires and mitigate incidents and yada yada. You know how these objectives like get so, mission statements. It's really on the side of the rig. It's right there. Our prime goal is to save lives. And it's on their shirts. It's like it's right there. That's the end of it. It's not a say on. It's not. It is kind of catchy, but it's not a bunch of bullshit because those people believe in that culture. And I believe that if those people came off the rig and didn't have their stuff on, that their chief would go to that ass, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't, as a chief, maybe you can enlighten me. It's my job as, I think we can all agree that people in the firehouse, because it's such a family culture, we become friends. Right? We may not be
That's true.
We may not be buddies, but we can become friends.
Yes.
Right? We care about each other. We know each other's wives, what's going on in their lives, divorces, kids, grandkids, struggles and strifes at home or with family members. All these things. We spend so much time together that we talk about these things. And it's my job as a fireman that would be under your command would be to not make you have to be my boss.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So how do you get people to that point other than time? Like, are you having conversations with your younger members? Are you picking certain guys and saying, I'm going to take him under my wing, and then when I'm done with him, I'm going to take this guy? Because you can't manage everything at once, right?
No.
So how do you manage that? How do you instill that somebody that, like, hey, we're in this together? Somebody that's never been in the firehouse, never been a part of the family, is not a legacy fireman. How do you approach them and get them to understand our culture inside the firehouse?
I just think being around us and seeing how we are together has a lot to do with it. Me as a chief officer, when we talked about the training side of it,
As a Bat-len chief.
yeah, talk about the training side of it. I'm going to be honest with you. My job is really easy. When you got guys that are trained, know what they're doing, and you put them on the task, and they take care of it. And that's how it is. These younger guys need to see that and say, look, man, this guy right here, chief officer says, hey, I need you to be operations on Bravo's side, and this is your crew, and they take care of business. There's no questions asked, and the chief officer knows that it's going to be taken care of. So I think the training aspect of it is very important, and the younger guys need to see that. That's what's really important with this job.
Yeah. Before we jump into that training piece, because that is actually something that we all kind of agreed we wanted to talk about was training. I've got to pay homage to some of our partners, at least we do. Fire decks with the absolute best turnout gear, in our opinion, on the market. The Tech Gen 71 and 51. It's light. It's got great TPP and THL. If you put the appropriate liner in it, we are absolutely blessed to be partners with Fire Decks. We cannot say enough good things about Captain Farrell at Fire Hooks Unlimited. If you haven't listened to that podcast from December, what an amazing time. We got to sit down with the captain. We have actually received emails from many of you and I want to say thank you for that, to have a part 2. And so we are in the talks with trying to get the captain to clear off his schedule during his off months this summer to sit down and talk with him. He'll be 93, still working on behalf of firemen every day. Toby Matthews and Destin Kelton down at Matex Hose down in Dothan, Alabama. It's a no BS approach to hose. It's in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion that with Box 1971, it's gallons per second versus BTU, and Matex helps deliver that. Our newest and really great partner is Milwaukee Tool, the official tool supplier, and it's nothing but heavy duty, and it's a Milwaukee Tool. If you're looking for top of the line lithium-ion batteries, you're looking for the best of the best, Milwaukee is the place to go. If you want to see a demonstration of the MX Fuel Saw and some of the other features that they have, we have stuff that we'll be taking to trainings with us. We are extremely ecstatic about them. And lastly, in this segment, I want to mention Rock Rooster Footwear. If you want to save some money on some boots, you can use checkout code BOX1971 for 15% off. Rock Rooster says every step matters. Box 1971 says be the cock of the walk. Rock out with your cock out. Wear your Rock Roosters. So we were talking about training, boys, and I want to. This is the crux of the conversation because we are a training company. We also do a lot of consulting, but the importance of training, and we browbeat this, but I want to know. I think our listeners want to know from each of you, why do you feel training is important? Why is it? Why do we have to train? I've got a different perspective. Chief's got a different perspective. Eddie's got a different perspective. Everybody at this table. So I want to hear your perspective, and we'll just start with you, Chief, if that's all right. We'll just because you're sitting here and you're not tugging on your cigar at the present moment.
I think training is important because we got to look after ourselves, and where we're educated enough to know what's going on with what we're doing, it's a lot safer for us to do it.
Sure. High risk, low frequency. If we take the frequency out and make it just another training day, just another event, you're saying that we'll have a better outcome.
Yeah.
The more you train, the more you see, the better off you'll be.
Yep.
All right, I can get down with that. Eduardo Sanchez. Do you know Eduardo?
I've met him once.
Yeah, well, that mustache, boy, it's whew, something. I ain't gonna lie to you.
So before I talk about training, because this kind of ties into training, but it goes back to what we were talking about just now. When we went and did that training this past weekend,
Yeah.
I heard a female that was there say something that really stuck with me, especially being a younger guy in the fire service. Hold your officers accountable. If there's something you want to know, make sure you make that officer share that knowledge, because that's what's going to keep you safe. That's what's going to keep everybody on your crew safe, is if you know how to do your job. Make them train. But I think the most important thing with training comes down to, when you stop learning in this job, it's the day to hang it up. I've heard that from so many older, wiser guys, and there's so much truth to it. A lot of people come into this thinking that the fire service owes them something, but this is such a complex job that we do. If you stop learning, you're not into this job the way you should be, because there's so much.
Sure.
But
No, those are all fair points, very fair points. The hard thing is I think we face a generational gap. Talking to you is different than talking to most 20-somethings. And there seems to be a problem, and I used to know a chief, still know him, that had trouble communicating with the younger generation, and was not up to speed on. He would literally say to you, "My information superhighway is a dirt road," and I love that quote, and it's a great quote. And adapting with the times is very difficult, right? Because this job, we didn't used to have thermal imagers. Now, hell, every riding position's got one, thanks to Seek, right? They're affordable. Another great partner of ours, making the unseen seen. And that's what we love about Seek, is that, I don't feel bad if we break it. $700. Just call California and they'll send you a new one. It's very simple. And, I'm not a proponent of breaking equipment, but we've got to train with stuff. And, I'm going to jump off on something real quick before we come to you, Boone. I know you're itching to say something. I see you over there bouncing in your chair. Just calm down, let that medicine kick in, buddy.
I'm good.
The use of the certain words, the word tactical is thrown around in this business like nobody's business. I look out on that apparatus floor out there. Those are not tactical engines. They're not tactical ladder trucks. They're just trucks and engines. It's not a tactical Halligan. It's just a Halligan. It's not a tactical set of jaws of life. It's just a set of jaws of life. And I don't understand why we have to put buzzwords in front of everything.
those Hurst tools come with Picatinny rails on them.
Yeah, I know. If
Pretty
you-
tactical.
That's for your flashlight.
yeah, it's for. Well, I put a laser pointer on.
Oh,
mine.
did you?
You damn right.
Green one?
No, red.
Red,
That way
all
people knew.
Really helps me pick up the eggs off the cone.
Yeah. But, you think about that. That word is thrown around so much. And one thing that I literally just saw at supper, I was dumb thumbing on social media, tactical thermal imaging. What the fuck does that even mean?
You're sneaking up on the fire.
I mean,
Sneaking up.
It's for when the fire fights back.
well, I mean, I get that, right? But that's just a tool. We spend so much time delving into one piece of equipment, but then you say, okay, back up from your tactical stance with that one particular tool. Now go over here with just a basic tool and force the door, and let me see you do that. And it's because guess what? They don't know how to do it. We have yet, as a culture in the fire service in America, yet to master the residential house fire. Therefore, we cannot effectively master a commercial fire unless it's surround and drown. And we can't master hazmat situations. We could come close, but we haven't mastered them. And I don't know if we ever will, but I don't think there's anything wrong with training for a better objective. And I personally can't understand why we need to throw buzzwords and things. These classes, you go to a class somewhere, you saw it, you just were recently at a fire school. They've got all these cool buzzwords and 10-word descriptions of a class instead of just firefighter safety and survival. Just tell me what it is. You don't have to fluff it up and church it up. Just tell me what it is. I don't need tactical thermal imaging. I don't need to know that it's a microbolometer, and the microbolometer takes this and it changes this, and you're off in the weeds, dude. Right? Like, we're way off in the weeds. It's just a tool.
Does it help me see what I need to see?
Yeah. And guess what? If it's not fucking charged,
It won't work.
You ain't seeing
And
shit.
what happens if, oh, sudden forbid, God bless America, if something happens and we lose our spatial orientation inside of a building because we weren't doing an oriented search and we relied on our technology so much? You know, one thing that I really didn't agree with, and I'm a Scott guy. I love Scott air packs. One word is redundancy. I love Scott. A lot of people love MSA. There's nothing wrong with MSA. They make a very, very solid pack. I've worn both, but I prefer Scott. Scott came out with a camera called the Scott Sight, and they sent it to us, and we were like, oh, boy, this is neat. This is cool. What are we going to do with this thing, right? So we put this thing on, and all of a sudden, my eyes were drawn to the bottom right side of my face piece, and Phil had the same comment. This damn thing's too bright. All I can see is that quarter-sized reticle down there, and that's all I'm focused on. I'm not focused on everything else. And, oh, by the way, this face piece is extremely heavy. And then you start dissecting it, and you go, oh, well, I have to have 4 sets of different batteries to operate this thing. And, oh, I've got to pair the Bluetooth up. Well, Bluetooth, I don't know about you, but I'm not trusting my life to Bluetooth. It's great to ride down the road and listen to stuff, such as this podcast. But it is not good to trust your life to. And I don't know. I get off on a tangent, and I'm sorry. It's something that irritates me because I don't understand why. And then here's the other crux. These fire departments, they can't afford all this expensive training to hear somebody pontificate. They need to know the X, Y, and Z, right? Keep your costs low, pass on the knowledge, pass on the craft. That's one thing we have prided ourselves on at Box 1971 is that we have not raised our prices. We have worked out with partners to help us to get fireman training. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, everything goes off without a hitch. We try not to overcharge people. We try to get real and proper training. That's the other thing. Real and proper training. Not just standing and checking the box, not just hanging out, just real and proper training. And one of the guys that came to help us from Ohio, his name's Nick. Great dude. We're going to have him on a podcast here very soon. He said, you know, I've been in this job for forever. I've never had to be smoked out where I had to force a door where I couldn't see. And I said, so you've never fought fire in a hallway? He goes, no, I've done it. I've just never trained. Well, that's a hell of a time to learn and trust your skills that you used in a pristine environment. And, you know, while it's great to use thermal imaging, while it's great to use hazmat meters, while it's great, we have to remember that they're just tools. And we don't have special classes on Halligans. We don't have special tools or special classes on saws, although I guess you could. But you're going to be very limited on what you can do and talk about. You know what I mean? It's just a tool. Remember that. Don't get sucked into something and just think that, oh, gee whiz, this is the new latest and greatest buzzword. You know, that's one thing that I see as a training deficiency is that people want to pull that in. The other thing, and I'm going to get to you, Boone, I know you're itching.
I'm good.
Is that training affects your ISO. And ISO, you know, a rating of 5 is the best for the residential single-family dwelling. That is the one thing that really matters for them. But as you get into commercial, getting down to a 1 or closer to a 1 is better for their insurance rating, which means people want to come into your town and do business, which creates microeconomics and people spend more money. And next thing you know, you got more tax dollars, which increases the fire department budget. So when somebody says the fire department doesn't make money, go to a 9 rating and then see what happens. And you'll see the money leave the city or the district. So that's one thing that irritates me is that we do not, as a fire service, sit down and explain to the newer members or even the members that aren't educated, that are aged a little bit, how this all affects what we do and how it affects buying new pumpers, new gear, new firehouses, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, Boone, I step off my soapbox. The floor is yours.
All right. So training, why is it important? I think it's pretty simple. You know, we have to watch out for ourselves. You know, we have to watch out for each other. What's the public expect? Do they want, you know, I was in myself and Pelletier went to a town hall meeting.
Okay.
It was brought up in there about training. One of the comments that was made was, you know, I'm not going to use this at my small department. You may not use it for that aspect, correct? And what they were referring to was an officer class that talks about budget we don't have that type of budget. I agree, you don't have that type of budget that you use in that class, but you do have a budget. So, you know, what does the public expect when they call us? You know, whether it be, you know, a volunteer house really doesn't have an A, B, C shift, but, you know, in your paid departments you do. So what does the community expect from A shift, B shift, C shift? They expect the same thing. All they know is when they call 911, they need help. So they want the same thing from A shift, B shift, C shift, doesn't matter. Are you going to run, is that call going to be the same every time? Or, you know, are our guys going to do the same every time? Oh, no, they're not.
Right.
But we need to be trained at the same level. You know, everybody needs training. I mean, if we don't have the training, then how can we do our job? How can I watch out for Pelletier? How can I watch out for Jeremy, Eddie, Matt? How can I do that?
Sure.
I can't watch out for you if I don't know what I'm doing. You know, how can I help the community if I don't know what I'm doing? And it, like you said, you know, it helps with your ISO. Training helps with ISO, which then in turn helps the community.
Generates money.
It does.
Helps
Yeah.
us get money by having good documented training for grants.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you can't prove it, I mean, yeah, we can say, yeah, we did this, but you know, it needs to be documented correctly.
So let me ask you this: how are you and your agency documenting training?
Emergency reporting.
Okay.
Everything's logged. I mean, everything we do from our rig checks to
PT.
PT. Yeah. I mean, we just had training this weekend.
Right.
It'll be logged. You know,
Right.
it's 8 hours of training a day, live burn training.
Good burns.
Yeah, good burns. We did car fire, entanglement. We did
Breaching walls.
breaching walls,
Ventilation.
ventilation. Correct. Yep. I mean,
Sprinklers.
Sprinklers.
Variety of.
Yeah, and it was good training. You know, it's like I said. You know, I feel that the fire service at times gives up. You know, we look at things and we say, you know, we've done it this way for years. Why change it?
I think firemen hate two things: change and the way things are.
True. You're correct.
I
But-
literally had $1 for every time I heard that. And I
But-
wouldn't
but-
be sitting with you guys tonight.
But the thing of it is, you know, we may have done it this way for years, for 10 years. But your new guy comes in, maybe he come in from out of state, from another department, and they've done things this way. Whether it be whatever, you know, whether it be the way we load hose or the way we do anything, really. I mean, there's always a better way or something that works better for someone else. You know, yeah, sometimes it's a chore to get that way of doing things into the department because, once again, we've got a lot of your volunteer departments are a lot of older guys. We don't have the younger guys coming. So, I mean, I just think we need to train. If we're not going to train, then why are we doing what we're doing?
I think that there's Chief Stephen Lovett will say, and I'm going to butcher this quote. He'll say, "Ooh, wee boys, you can show up with your red light and your pager. Come on, there's plenty of fire for all of us." And I think those days are gone. You know,
Yeah.
we've got to wrangle this in.
Mm-hmm.
But does that start on day one when we bring somebody into the firehouse?
I think it has to. And I'll be honest, you know, I realized this a couple months ago. When we have new guys come into your department, you know, you've got to start right then and there with that person.
You're saying set the tone.
Yeah, you can't expect a new guy coming into the door to fit in as soon as they get there. You got to kind of show them the way. If we don't show them the way, then we're at fault. You know, if they end up leaving or quitting or whatever it may be, if we haven't shown them what we expect or what we require, then how can you hold anyone accountable? I think that's where we're at.
What do you do? Let me ask you this. What do you do when the boss doesn't hold people accountable?
Well, the way I look at it at that aspect of it is the boss is the boss. I mean, what can you do at that point? Yeah, you can knock on that door, on the chief's door, and say, hey, you know, why are we doing it this way? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't you address this? At the end of the day, chief's the chief.
Right or wrong,
Boss,
he's still
boss.
Yeah.
It's all right. I mean, he's the man.
Right.
You know, he was put there for a reason.
Right. Well, and I think you brought up something there, and I'm gonna. Oh boy, if your toes get stepped on here, pick your feet up off the floor. A friend of mine recently messaged me and said, "Hey, I got promoted." It was everything in my power to not respond back. Congrats on winning the popularity contest. It seems that there is not a consistent way of promoting people or testing. The conversation was had today with another fireman. He said, you know, one thing that I love about civil service is that it's tested. But the one thing I hate about civil service is that it's tested. It's such a process. But it weeds out a lot of people that necessarily can't tie their tennis shoes and chew bubble gum and walk down the street. And you don't do all those three things in succession. But if you can't do all those three things at all said and told, we have a problem. And I think uncoachable kids become unemployable adults. And even though you're a volunteer, you're still an employee.
Correct. And, you know, with that being said, as far as training goes,
Sure.
another important thing I think is, I think we can all agree that just because you've had that training, I now have that cert in my hand, that doesn't make you an expert in that subject.
Agreed.
There's a difference between a firefighter and a fireman and a driver and a chauffeur. You know, it's about the passion for the job, going that extra mile and doing it.
Right.
I mean, we talked about in West Virginia, it's 120 hours for a firefighter one. Can we take that student that just went through that 120 hours, passed that test, now he's got that cert, can I expect him to have the same knowledge as you, Jeremy, when he goes to that fire? Can he do the same thing that you do?
Maybe in his mind.
On the job training.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
where you get your experience.
You can't. We can't. I think we do that a lot in the fire service. I think we send guys to class. They go to class. I'm guilty of it. You know, I've had that mindset when I was younger that, hey, I've got this now. I can do this.
Can't tell me shit.
I'm equal. I'm
Right.
equal to the man that's got 30 years when I only had 5.
Right.
I was nowhere close.
Your time and grade's not there.
Yeah, and you're had a conversation the other day with someone, another fireman. We got to talking about IC,
Incident command.
Incident command, yeah,
Sure.
seniority. And he made the comment. He said, who's in charge at the scene? Well, I mean, most of the time it's your officer, your senior officer.
Right.
But what if you don't have an officer there? It happens in the volunteer service. A lot of times you don't have an officer there. So who's in charge? He says, your senior guy. I said, so years of service means everything. Is that what you're telling me? And he said, well, yeah. I said, well, I can argue that. He's like, wait a minute. What do you mean? I'm like, so you take someone that's been in the service for 15 years. All he's done is take firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and maybe an officer class. And he stopped. He didn't train anymore. He's got 15 years in the department. But a man that's got 5 years has got all these classes. He's trained. Who should really be in charge? What is seniority?
Ooh,
What is seniority?
that's fucking deep.
That's a sore subject.
Why is that a sore subject, Chief? Let's talk about it.
Especially like on the volunteer side, you got, man, that is.
Yeah. But this is
A lot
this
of-
is the thought-provoking portion that people want to hear that nobody wants to talk about.
So you got, I think a lot of younger guys do not want to kind of overstep the older guys in a sense, and then the older guys despise having the younger guys have do things different than what they think it needs to be done.
Sure.
And yeah, that's pretty touchy.
But the point I was trying to get across is, you know, if you really look at seniority, I mean, you know, seniority to me, you know, to a lot of people is years of service. I've been doing it for 30 years. Well, that's great if you've done it for 30 years and you've continued your training and you've learned from that.
So if you have one fire over 30 years, you don't have 30 years of experience.
Correct.
You have repeated year one 30 times.
Yeah.
Correct.
That is the difference. Whereas we have people who are trained and capable. I will tell you, I say it all the time. I've probably said it on this podcast before. Somebody can go back fact check it if they want to listen to them all. The best education I ever got from people were from people that couldn't form a complete sentence, couldn't write it down. Right? I mean,
Correct.
You think about an innovator. You know, I know that most of you guys like Chevy pickups or Dodges, but Henry Ford, you know, he went to court and said, I don't have to know how to do that. I pay someone to know how to do that. This is still blue-collar work. Ray McCormick said it best. It's dirty, demanding, and dangerous, the way it will always be. Those are the values of a fireman. We are willing to put ourselves up against something to help someone that we may or may not know. And in a smaller community, it's a very big thing. The firehouse is a central part of the community. And even when you give somebody directions, if you're, you know, the firehouse is on the main drag in town, you say, oh, you just run past the firehouse, go 2 stoplights. You know, you drive through the town, you see the firehouse, you're like, oh, okay. You take a look at it. The grass is cut. It looks nice. The flag's up. It's not tattered. It's not torn. You're like, oh, these people have a little bit of pride. So that leads me to my next question for this round table discussion, literally at a round table. Where is we get to see a lot of firehouses, and we see some that have an immense amount of pride. We see a lot that have little to no pride, and then we see people that have absolutely nothing and all the pride in the world. And they're good firemen, but they don't have shit to show for it. Where do we establish the pride in our equipment and our apparatus and the job that we do?
Care and maintenance of it. Plain and simple.
All right, well, explain that.
I come in. I mean, I understand if you're a busy company, but even the most busiest companies in the country take time to maintain their equipment so that when they arrive on scene, it's going to work properly, it's going to function as it should, and it won't let them down. Whether it's making sure our gas cap is secure, making sure that there's hydraulic fluid in the pump, packs clean, ready to go, full battery, full tank of air. That's
Tank.
pride.
A tank.
Cylinder.
All right. I was just wondering if we got in the Army.
I'm going to buy a tanker.
I wanted to drive the tank you were talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to be like that movie.
I'll let you drive it.
Okay.
No, what was that movie where The Interview, where they went over with Kim Jong-un, and he was singing, who was that? Katy Perry?
Firework.
And he starts crying while he's singing it.
They hate us
That
because
would
they
probably,
ain't us.
that'd probably be me. I ain't going to lie.
But I mean, you know, you're talking about taking pride in your equipment. You know, not only does that equipment need to be maintained so it'll work properly when we need it, or the community needs it, because that's really who we're there for.
Absolutely.
It's not us; it's about them.
They bought it.
Exactly. So with your volunteer service, you know, you got your volunteer services that are struggling, and you know they send out mail outs or whatever it may be throughout the year. They have bingo or whatever.
Right.
How can you expect your community to help you when they see that truck going down the road that's falling apart or it's dirty or whatever it may be? I mean, I can't ask someone to help me that if, hey, we need a new truck, and they're like, it goes by and it's dirty. I mean, that's just not, it's not okay.
It's not acceptable.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I was in a firehouse in New Orleans. Get this, right off Frenchman Street. nice little engine company house. You know, just that old field firehouse. They had pride in it. Small, American LaFrance engine. It is beat all to hell. It had diamond plate, steel diamond plate, zip tied to the mirrors. so that because they're going down narrow streets and a lot of stuff, so that if they did hit something and it banged in, hopefully didn't damage your mirror. One of the steps on the at the pump panel, like where a lot of people just have that step there, they might have a hose tray for fill line or something. It's gone. But that truck, other than the flaws from being on the job for the last 15 years, running countless fires, wrecks, whatever that they're going on, clean. You'd run your finger down it, no dust, polished. Anything could be polished was polished. I mean, they had a polished American LaFrance turd. They took pride in it. That's the only way to say it. I mean, they were a great group of guys, and check it out. This that. And I asked them, like, why do you have that on the mirrors? Some of these streets we go down, you're going to hit something eventually, and so when it bangs in, hopefully I still have a mirror and I can just push it back out and I can still see back down that alley.
Right.
And it's stuff like that works for them. They know the area that they're running their first due, their second due, and they've probably broken 3 or 4 mirrors. I said, oh, shit, I can't see the back out of this alley. And that was their fix. It works for them, and it looked great. That was pride.
So let me tell you about a situation that I ran upon recently. The rig was checked the day before, full checked. The crew of the day goes in, and they were tasked with, I think, changing. They were doing their air cylinder maintenance. So they went in and changed all the batteries. 6 months, right? I know that MSA, you just unplug a big thing, and it's a big battery pack, and you recharge it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Scott, you have to actually pull out batteries.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were pulling out batteries and changing everything.
Batteries in the pack.
Yeah.
Face piece.
No,
For-
not in the face piece. Just no voice amps, none of that
No,
stuff.
all right, yeah.
Just the 2 in the pack. I
Yep.
think the one on the regulator and then the one in the pass alarm at the butt.
All right.
So they go through, and from what I understand, the cylinders were all lower than 4,000 on a 4,500 system. They were looking, the straps on some of the packs were pulled up tight, and that raised some questions as to when the truck was actually checked. So they went back to the log and looked at the log, and guess what? The day before, it was previously checked. So, curiosity, they went and did a full check again on the apparatus. They found a generator half full of fuel, a PPV fan half full of fuel, rusted tools, and this is a reserve engine. So my question was, did they have a fire that it went to? And the answer was no. So how do you handle that when you have people that want to come in real quick and check a box, pow, 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 and be done, and so they can go fly the recliner, right? How would you address that? How would you address that when you get to the saw, Chief? And this is the other kicker. They had to rebuild 4 saws. 4. Because they were so curious as to why this was checked and not done that they went and looked at that apparatus, and they went to look at another apparatus. By the time they were done, they were 4 deep. And they rebuilt 4 saws, had to do all the air packs, do everything, because of one person not being able to do their job. How do you handle that in the administration side on your end?
So like you need to pull somebody off to the side and have a deep conversation with them.
Yeah. Or beat them with a garden hose. What? The beatings will continue until morale improves.
I think you just need to put it in their head, the person is supposed to be doing this. Do you realize what would happen if some of your crew goes in and it's not working right, and you knew it's not working right, and something happens to them? How are you going to live with yourself afterwards? Don't ever put yourself in that situation. Make sure that that equipment's operating.
It's a tough position to be in, isn't it? And as a boss, you don't want to get involved. You want your guys to handle it, right? You shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be involved.
Shouldn't.
What should come to you? Maybe in my world, I want somebody to come to me and say, hey, just so you know, we handled this. And if it happens again, I'm going to need you to get involved.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
That's. I mean, we're grown folks, right? This is grown.
Chain of command.
Yeah, chain of command's important.
Very right. You don't need to be involved in every decision.
No.
But one thing I don't understand, and forgive me, Chief, if you need to pick your toes up, that's fine. Maybe you too, Boone. Well, you're a boss.
Since when?
Being told, well, you're a captain.
Well, yeah.
You're a boss.
Yeah. I don't look at it that way, but
Well, I
go ahead.
understand. Somebody's got to be accountable. Being told, like, what we're going to use. Like, how we're going to, like, what hose load works best for our district. Not what's easiest to pack, what works best for us in our situation. Or we got to get a committee together, we got to get guys buy-in. Okay. And then it's a 50-50 vote. Well, what are we going to do? We don't know. Or we keep, like, everybody's like, we don't like pistol grips. Well, we're going to keep the pistol grips on because that's what I like. But it's not about what you like. It's about what the men like. Right? So if everybody's coming to you and saying, this does not work for us, that does not work at all. And having one person make a decision that affects the collective group is probably not a good thing. But I'm also not a fan of committee. If everybody gets together and says, this is what we want, and this is what works for us, and I'm the son of a bitch that has to pull the line, or I'm the son of a bitch that has to pull this out of a cabinet, and this is too high. You know, I saw a fire department where the cans were above the wheel well. So poor little Eddie, if he was on that engine, we're going to have to get him a fucking step stool. I mean, we're going to have to get
He's
him a
already
little,
got a booster seat.
I mean,
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
a little giant ladder to get the son of a bitch up in there just so he can get the can out. That's crazy, right? But instead, we've got tarps, which we seldom use. I mean, we have to have them, and we seldom use them. But we also forget that we're supposed to be property conservation experts. I think that's one thing that we do forget. Maybe we should use them tarps a little bit more often. You know, there's nothing wrong with taking some salvage runners in and throwing them on the floor or doing things like that, like the old school guys used to do. But I don't know. I don't know how we get that pride, you know, besides sitting them down and saying, hey, this is why we do this. But the entitlement thing, and maybe, Eddie, you can speak on this because you are a younger person. But how do you combat that?
When we talk about pride, you know, let me ask you a question. When you go out and you see a fire truck sitting somewhere,
Yeah.
being a fireman, what's
Yeah.
the first thing you look at on that engine?
Does the truck have a pump?
Cosmetic-wise, what's the first thing you look at?
Does the truck have a pump?
Okay.
Because trucks don't have pumps.
I look at the hose.
Right. Oh, yeah. Tightly packed hose. If it looks clean, it pulls clean.
Right, and I know why they do it so meticulously. And if they're willing to be that meticulous about the hose that's on their rig,
Right.
you know that they're trying to master their craft. They're going above and beyond to try to be the best company, the best fireman that they can be.
Right.
I think I was watching Facebook videos the other day, and I think it was that Dr. Jordan Peterson guy.
Well, he's great.
The make your bed. Have you heard that? He says just start out. If you're trying to change your routine in your life, just make your bed. Because if you can get in the habit of doing that, it instills discipline. I think it's the same thing. You know, if you come in, you see the fire hose is messed up, fix it. Because when we go driving down the road, if it looks like a bag of ass, we look like a bag of ass. And it's not just affecting your crew. It's affecting the entire department and the entire fire service.
What do you think about, I know for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm a guy that gets to work about 35, 45 minutes early. Have done it. Will continue to do it till the day I officially say I'm done. I look at it from the aspect that I know I'm not being paid to be there that early. I'm not being paid to punch in. But when it is time for me to punch in, I know that the shit's correct.
You're ready to go.
Yeah. You know, I'm not waking the other guys up. I'm not running up saws. I'm not doing any of that on the ramp to wake neighbors up or be an asshole. But the things that I can control before 8 a.m., because we switch at 6, that's a big damn deal. So why wouldn't we try to be better? What's wrong with coming in your uniform? What's wrong with coming in and having that pride of having your shirt tucked in? Those little things that you don't think matter, they speak volumes. Football coaches looked at one thing, and I'm talking American football, Chief. I know you love soccer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We're talking American football, not Pele, okay? God rest his soul.
The real foosball.
Yeah.
It's for the devil.
It's called the off-the-bus test, right? You see that son of a bitch get off the bus, you're like, holy shit. You know, there's a famous picture of an FDNY fireman, I think a ladder 12, walking. He's got the roof rope and the son of a bitch
Lifesaver
looks like he is going to the gates of hell. He's probably going to an automatic fire alarm. But that picture is so iconic, and he's got a big fireman mustache. So he's walking down the street, and he gets his picture snapped, and now he's internet famous, right? That guy passes the off-the-bus test, right? He looks the part. But I guarantee you that guy is probably a squared-away fireman. If you were to sit down with him, he probably loves this job.
Mm-hmm.
And this job absolutely owes you nothing. The people owe you nothing. And, you know, if we would do a better job of advocating for ourselves and maybe talking to people instead of closing the bay doors. And, you know, I remember we were in town last year doing a class with y'all, and we had a guy with a trombone playing in the middle of the street.
Yep.
Made that guy's night.
Yeah, it made his night. He was a middle school teacher, right? But we all had a good laugh. That memory of him playing the Volkswagen coming down the street like a I don't know how to make the noise, but it sounded like one of them revved up boxer engines, you know, shifting gears coming down the street. But he made that sound with his trombone, and we all just kind of were like, you know. And then Phil, you know, he started playing when the Saints march in. Then Phil gets out there and starts dancing in the middle of the daggum street. And we're all smoking cigars, and the people see us, and they stop and they converse. We don't do a good enough job of marketing ourselves, in my humble opinion. So if we can control the things that we can control, I think we set ourselves up for better success. So with that, the question now is, what does the community expect on every call? What do you think the community expects in your community or where you work? What are they expecting when they dial 911 or call the firehouse directly?
They expect you to answer that call, be there in a timely fashion, and solve their problem on their worst day.
Sure. Fair point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the simple things that we think is simple can be their worst day.
Sure.
You know, whether it be a fire or car wreck, cat in a tree.
It really does happen.
It does happen. Yeah, we've done it. You know, I've done it with the career department probably 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years. It is what it is. We
Sure.
go do it. But, you know, they want professionalism. They want help. I mean, they wouldn't have called if they didn't. But they expect us to be able to handle their problem. And without training, and we can't. I mean, I don't understand why someone could do the job, want to do this, and not be better at it. I've just never, I can't.
What do you mean better? Like, other than just a T-shirt and a pager and a red light?
Exactly. Better theirself.
Right.
You know, we made the comment today. You made the comment, I think, Jeremy. Jacket's a little tight, isn't it? It is. And it is.
Sure.
I'm not afraid to admit it. You know, I've probably put on 30 pounds in the last couple of years.
Sure. Life catches up with you.
It does. I'm not getting any younger.
Or any better looking.
And no, I'm not. Not at all.
Bald bastard.
But on the same hand, you know, I realize that and I need to fix it. So with that's something with myself that I need to fix.
Sure.
For the fire service.
For the guy sitting next to you.
Exactly. I
Right.
can't, you know, if I can't do something because of my weight, then how am I going to help him? How am I going to help the community?
Right.
You know, it is what it is. You know, I just think the community wants that professionalism every time. Answer that call in a timely fashion. Be the best you can. I mean, that's what they want.
You never got to meet the late Chief Kevin Scanlon, but he was 6'6", Irish baritone, came from New Jersey. He talked like this, you know, really good guy. After he retired out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, he became the chief of a little city here in West Virginia called Bluefield. And he tried to affect change. And his, we get together again. I'll bring you his resignation packet, because it's not just a letter; it's a stapled packet explaining why he was leaving, because there was no support from City Hall, and he knew what it took to fix it. But he would always, we would go to these conferences, we'd go to these big shows when we were first starting out and spend stupid amounts of money. And we realized that it didn't really matter to us about that because that's not our target audience. And so we were at a place, I think we were at Myrtle Beach, maybe. It could have been maybe one of the Carolinas. Let's just be safe with that. And he looks at me and he ribbed me and he goes, "See that guy right there? How many fucking yards of no-mix did they have to kill to outfit that guy?" And I'm like, holy shit, But it's true, right? I mean,
it's true.
You expect that guy to go through a confined space? You expect that guy to go through a window? No, if you're tipping 4 bills, bro, unless you're 7 foot tall, you're probably not in the best shape. And I mean, you're not in bad shape. I was just giving you a hard time.
Oh, yeah, but
What's your take, Eddie, on what does the community expect? What do they want?
I think when the bell goes off, they've bought your time at that point. Just like they should, they expect us to step off the rig, ready to do what we do, which is really a little bit of everything. That's what the fire service is.
Right.
Everything from fighting fires to helping an old guy put his window air conditioning unit in the middle of the summertime.
Right.
They call for everything. So they want professionalism. They want professionals that step off the rig ready to do their job.
Do you think that maybe installing that air conditioner unit would prevent an EMS call?
Absolutely, it could. Yeah.
So is that community risk reduction?
It is. Plus, it puts the fire department in a good light in people's eyes. We're out there doing something. They see us out. They see us helping people. That's
Right.
what they want. They want professionals that are capable and willing to help people.
Sure. Chief, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. I mean,
That's a first.
I agree with him all the time. See, I'm like one of these older guys. I'm all right. I am one of the older guys, but I'm a true believer that the younger guys, you need to listen to them because they do have good ideas. I mean, when they mention certain things, it's like, that's a good idea. Let's try it. That's how I am.
Sure.
But with the community, I think the community, when we show up on a call, we need to take care of business. We need to take care of what we've been training on, and I think that's like Boone mentioned earlier. When somebody's in their worst time, they need that person there. So, that's what we're there for. We got to be there and just to take care of business.
Right.
In a professional way. We got to look professional. We got to act professional. We can't stand around and joke.
Taking selfies in the front yard.
One thing that really bothers me is like if you're at a car accident and there's serious injury or fatality and you got a group of firemen over beside the truck joking around and laughing when the family's standing there.
Sure.
That always bothered me. And I do
Right.
not like it. That takes the professionalism and it kind of takes like what we're there for, as in, do we really care what we do?
Right.
Why is that so funny over there? My son's in the
Dead.
vehicle. Yes.
Right.
And I don't like that. But I think we need to be there, professionals, take care of business, and do what the public expects of us.
Chief John Eversole of the City of Chicago Fire Department was quoted as saying, "Our fire department takes 1,120 calls every day. Do you know how many of those calls the public expects perfection on? 1,120. Nobody calls the fire department and says, 'Hey, send me 2 dumbass firemen in a pickup truck.' In 3 minutes, the public expects 5 brain surgeon decathlon champions to show up and solve all of their problems." And
True story.
that's deep, but it's true. And the truth is like rain. And if you've shut the podcast off, we're sorry, but you haven't heard it because you got mad and were a child. But the truth is like rain. It don't give a fuck who it falls on. And if this is you and we're hitting a nerve, then maybe it's time to reevaluate. When you talk to Big John Chamberlain, one of our instructors, he will tell you the hardest thing to do, and I agree with him, is to stand in the mirror and have a serious conversation with yourself. First time you do it, you laugh, and then you start having a real conversation with yourself. And if you're really doing it, you find out that, man, I'm just as flawed as anybody else. And I will tell you, Chief, my outlet to stress is trying to laugh. Right?
I agree, but there's certain places you
right.
do that at.
That's right. And it's apropos, right?
Yes.
Right place, right time. Side of the road, when we've done a death notification or the family came up, not the appropriate time. But in the bay with the doors closed, away from people, or at someone's house with somebody not recording it, that's an appropriate time to vent that steam.
Yeah, and we have mental health that we got to be concerned about ourselves.
That's right.
And we can't prevent certain things that we go on. It'd be nice if we could.
Amen.
But when we show up, we'll show up at the worst time. But there's times where we have to, mentally, it's going to affect us. But when we go to the firehouse and then when we talk, that's when you need to do it. You don't need to do it when people are watching. Because mental health for us is a real serious thing.
Very.
And we can't dwell on everything, or that's really going to affect us.
Down the road.
Yeah.
There's repercussions to
Yep.
it. Well, we talked about what does the public expect. My question is, and anybody chime in, I mean, what do you think that the public expects? Because what we deem a non-emergency, if they've dialed 911, it is their bad day, right? They don't know what else to do.
It is their emergency. So New Year's Eve, me and the BC and one of the other guys, we go just after New Year's Eve, 1 a.m.
So New Year's Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day. Smack you with your own boom mic. Anyways, we go. Lady couldn't get her gas log fireplace to turn off. It's remote controlled operated. So we get there. Of course, we try it. All three of us. Like, yeah, it's not working. So you must turn the thermostat down. No, just turn it off. It blew blazes hot in there. It was hotter than the training fire we had today. And so get down, turn it off, show her how you do it. Was looking, for like a key, whatever. It was a newer setup, so it didn't have the key in the wall. Probably stood there for another hour talking to her.
Yeah.
And you can tell, just made her evening. Asked what our names was. I said, well, I'm Matt. She's, what's your name? Looks at the BC and he's like, before he can say a thing, I'm like, Matt. And then he's right on it. She looks, Ryan. She's like, well, what's your name? And he's like, you'll never guess. And she's like, Matt? He said, no, Ryan. And she just looked at him like she wanted to smack him and then laughed. And we probably stood there another 30 minutes talking. 2 weeks ago, at probably about 10 o'clock at night, we hear a call go out. And I think Boone was with me. Was you with me on that?
No, but I remember the call.
All right, so we hear a call come in, throughout the station, and we're just sitting there listening to it. Don't think much about it. It was another department, other end of the county. And as time goes by, we hear them clear. They couldn't find that address. A little bit later, our tones go off. I'm like, huh, what? It was for us. So dispatch had messed up, sent the wrong department. So our tones go off. I'm like, oh, I know right where we're going. It was there New Year's Day. Get in the engine, roll down the street. Someone's out there flashing high beams. Like, yeah, I know. I know where I'm going. Move your car so I can park. We get there. One of the other guys on the crew, he's just happy-go-lucky. Walks up and smiling and looks at the lady like, hey, how are you this evening? And, what the hell are you smiling at? I got a real emergency here. I've been waiting for 40 minutes. Like, she was ready to choke and kill him. And I was just like, well, I'll let you handle that. I'm going right upstairs to where that stove is because I know what I need to do. Turned it off. She was happy. Explained to her what happened. She was going to make a phone call. Talked for a few more minutes. Left. But like she said, she couldn't get it off. It was hot. She probably 90 years old. That was her emergency. And she needed us, and we were there to help.
Right. And when the other piece, the component that you just mentioned, you educated.
Yeah.
That's what we don't do. We go to the grocery store, people are like, well, I'm buying your groceries. No, not really. We all chip in and we buy our own meal, but we don't know we don't train people how to handle that conflict. We don't train people how to manage those incidents that come up. But, whether it's a perceived emergency or a real emergency it's all about perception, right? To that person, they're having a real emergency. To us, it's just nonchalant. It's business as usual, right?
Yep.
But it is what it is, and we sometimes need to sit down and talk with folks and say, hey, this is the true deal. This is what we've got going on. What do you guys think about the overall culture right now on the job? What do you think that, I guess, positives, negatives? Let's just talk about it.
Well, I mean, we've talked about pride. We've talked about getting off the truck looking like this is the best job in the world, and we want to be there.
Right.
And everything we've talked to I think directly ties into culture and morale. You know, if your culture and morale are bad, that's one of the hardest things you can fix in a department, because you've got to start, you know, from the ground up and change so much. So how much of this do you guys think is connected directly to the culture and the morale, you know?
Right.
It's all connected. And the thing of it is, you know, it's not something that we can fix overnight. It's going to be.
It didn't get there overnight.
No, it's going to be a little bit at a time. It may not happen in my lifetime. I hope it does. I'd like to see it happen next week. Will it? No. Hell, I'd like to see it happen tomorrow, but it's not going to. You're going to have a hard time, especially in your volunteer fire service. You're going to have a really, really hard time getting everyone on the same page. And I know, Eddie, we've talked about this. Matt, Peltier, we've talked about it. Carver, I don't know if I brought it up to you. I know I've talked to Jeremy about it. But, you know, I talk about the same page. I just like to see us get in the same damn chapter of the book.
Not even on the same page. Just
Yeah, the hell with the same page. You know, because there's just so much that we can all do to just a little bit at a time.
Sure.
You know, from going in and checking your trucks to training to, you know, whether it be your volunteer, your career place, it doesn't matter. You know, do something.
Sure.
I mean, helps, you know, hey, you know, what are we going to do today? Well, let's go stretch a line. You know, you're going to do that. Each person does that. Probably going to take you, you know, an hour, a couple hours maybe. By the time you get it, you know, everything done. But it's training. And you've helped, you know, you've kind of helped that, maybe that new guy's there. You've kind of helped him a little bit too, as far as to help his morale, as far as, you know, a department that may not do a whole lot. Start doing that with them. You know, he may have a buddy that he goes and talks to. Man, it's been fun. We've done this. We've done that. They may want to join. That's how we're going to get people.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, by just coming in and not sitting around and joking around. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Every now and then. But when you do it all the time, you get guys that say, well, why am I going to show up? All we're going to do is sit and talk. You know, if we have a call, then I'll go. But I'm not going to the firehouse just to sit and talk.
Right.
You want to say, hey, you know, I want to show you something new. You know, this might work for us. It might not. Let's try it. This is how you do it. This is, you know, hose. This is how you do it. Pack it, deploy it. This is its uses this way. And it could be really great. It could be really crappy for you.
But you don't know until you don't try.
Until you don't try, you don't know. And
yeah, no, that's a valid point. I want you hit something earlier, Frenchie, that I wanted to touch on. You talked about incentive programs. So they're great, right?
yeah.
When you have people engaged and they get a reward. But what do you do when people aren't engaged? How do you mitigate that to where it's a balance where people aren't running over top
Pulling their share.
Yeah, when you only see them when it's time to get the incentive, but they're not around for the, you know, because when you start paying people, that changes their mindset.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's human nature, right? Because
Yeah.
you know, you can predict pretty much what a cow or a horse is going to do. You can pretty much predict what a deer is going to do.
Yeah.
You can't predict what a human will do because they're the craziest animal on earth. We'll do anything for $1.
Yeah,
Right?
it's-
The internet's proof of that.
That's like what I was talking about, you know, it was like an incentive with the water bill thing or something.
Sure.
You know, we're all doing it. Eddie slacks off. Call City Hall, hey, send him a water bill. He ain't pulling his weight. You know, and he gets that water bill. He's going to be pissed. You know, what the hell, you know? He ain't been to drill for 6 months. We ain't seen him. He's ran 2 calls, you know. He's going to show up. He's going to be bitching. Well, you haven't been pulling your weight. This is an incentive for you to help us, help your community. In return, your community's helping you, you know, say 30, 40, 80, $100, whatever.
Right.
You know, something for you to do with your kids, something, you know, put an extra T-bone steak at the end of the month on the table for you. So he's either going to nut up, start coming back.
Or shut up.
Yeah, literally. By shutting up, he's going to walk out the door. Hey, it's been real. Appreciated you. We'll find someone to fill the shoes, hopefully soon.
Right.
But
It's
you
tough.
know, yeah, he's going to come back and, hey.
But how do you balance that with the amount of hours and money and resources spent on training that individual?
That's where it is. You hate to see him go out the door, but, I mean, if you want to be a part of that, if you want that incentive, these are the guidelines for it. You're not going to meet them, hard out.
Sure.
You make your 3 drills a year or whatever, 2 business meetings a year, whatever. The bare minimum, you're going to get the bare minimum. Go up and above, do a little more. Hey, we appreciate you. Would you like? We'll put you back on the list for no water bill or something. And that's just the way it's going to have to be. You're going to piss people off. It's working those water bills. He's off. All right. 6 months later, oh, he's back on. Okay. You're going to piss someone off, whoever does water bills. But that was just something I always thought of it would work.
Sure. Something. I mean, something's got to give. We talked about young people, Eddie. You brought that up. You were talking about culture of the job as a whole, but we talk about younger people, and I look at you, and because guys in their 30s and 40s usually don't typically wander into the firehouse. We need to capture them young, whether we start in high schools recruiting or colleges,
Job fairs.
Sure, thinking a little bit outside the box. But how do we fix? I know how the job was when I came on. How do we fix the culture? Because there are people that are walking around on this job that have never had to be a probie.
Absolutely.
I wasn't allowed to sit down to eat. I wasn't allowed to watch TV.
Right, and it seems hard, and it seems kind of superfluous, excessive when they're doing it because they're really beating on you hard. After you're done with it, though, you realize, like I realized, I learned more in my probie period than I've learned any other time in the fire service. Just because when you are a probie and they are hard on you, everybody's watching you, and when everybody's watching you, you have the opportunity to have that attention from them, for them to focus on you and try to mold you into the fireman that you need to be, that the community expects you to be. And, your senior guy should be responsible for that. And when you have to be a probie, there's accountability there. Because if you don't become a competent fireman, it's going to fall back on him. So I think there's just a whole setup there that leads to success. Not to mention the fact, like we've said a few times here, the fire service doesn't really owe you anything. Like you owe this job everything. When you became a fireman, you hit the lottery, right?
That same fire chief that told me his information, superhighway was a dirt road. He said the only time that you volunteered was when you turned in an application. Anything else from that became an obligation. And if we were to sit down and tell people, and I don't know how the volunteer world works, but if you've got a committee or a group of people that oversee something, or the chief himself, the chief gets a bad rap because he's got to do everything, right?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the chief is usually the most hard-charging dude there is, and he's got to surround himself with people that can do the job. But hell, if you're working out of town or you got to work a real job, or whatever, a lot of people are leaving home to commute, or some people work from home. It's hard to get things done. The job now requires so much more in an administrative role than just showing up. It used to be not that way. Now it is.
There's a lot less paperwork 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Jesus Christ. It's so much paperwork. And it'll drag you down. And then you got to go be a politician, too. No, you hired me to be a tactician.
I think the military and the fire service, a lot of the methods of the training are similar. The ideas.
Oh, they are.
behind it.
You look at your bigger metropolitan departments; they're paramilitary organizations. I mean, I'm not saying that they're walking around with guns, but the way they're structured.
Right.
They're not Ruby Ridge.
Yeah. It's just the way they're structured, chain of command, how they do stuff, from the way they run their academies. put people through them. You know, they're modeled after it. Why? Because it works for the United States military.
But you look at like basic training. Why are they so hard on those guys? They want to beat those guys down mentally so that they can build them back up to be what the Army needs them to be.
Yeah,
But one thing
what
I
they
do
Do
see,
it our way.
and I think Matt can agree with this.
and it also, cuts people out that just shouldn't be there.
Don't pack the gear.
Yeah.
Natural vetting, yeah.
I think you can agree with this that we're so desperate for people that we don't, as a service, want to turn anybody away.
Yeah.
I had a fire chief. I had to go take a leadership class one time, and NFA leadership 1, 2, and 3. And I cussed the chief for sending me to it, and I still cuss him for sending me to it because I didn't learn anything in it. It was a bunch of, it didn't teach you any skills. It was just basically show up and you get your certificate for coming. But I had a fire chief stand up and say, well, there's a spot for everybody. You know, if anything, I can just hand them a clipboard. I'm going to be honest with you. If they don't know what the hell's going on and they're running accountability, that's a big damn deal.
When I say there's somewhere for everyone, I'm thinking administrative side. But I'd like to have someone. Is there an accountant out there that, you know, hey, I want to help, but you know this really ain't my thing. Oh, you're an accountant, man. I tell you what, I'd love for you, you know, help take care of our books and
Right.
you know, advise us on stuff. And he's probably going, hell yeah,
Right.
you know, a secretary or something. You know, someone that's really good at taking notes, entering information. Yeah, I could do that.
Right.
You know, that's going to take load off so that someone can get out there and, you know, be with the guys and help them, train them up, and do the job.
Well, one of the most dangerous jobs that we do now, and I think about the major thoroughfare that runs through this community, and you guys spend a fair amount of time on it, all seasons of the year, and what do we do with the new person? Oh, we'll just send them out to direct traffic. That is one of the most responsible jobs that there is.
Yeah.
But we send the new guy or the person that doesn't have a whole lot of training or sense about what we're doing and how we park apparatus and where we park apparatus. And, you know, these things they're just not being taken into effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one thing. I agree with Rick Lasky that it has to start on day one. We have to sit them down and tell them that it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And this is the expectations. Because a lot of times people are they're looking for a place to be. And this isn't a social club. And while it can be, have aspects of that, that's not the prime goal. The prime goal is to be ready to go out the door at a moment's notice. You know, when you're taking 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes to get out the door on a call, that's a problem. That's a severe problem. And I've seen it, and it's aggravating as sin because you're like, what are you doing? You know, if that is your mother laying there or your house on fire, you're going to want somebody Ricky Tick, right?
That's one of the hardest things I've had to come to terms with. Moving out of town, away from the firehouse, I've always been close to the firehouse to where, you know, second tone goes off at my volunteer house. You know, I'm coming through the door into the bays, and, you know, I'll be geared up, and someone else will pull in. I'll have a truck running, and I'll be sitting there in the seat, and I'll get my butt chewed because I'm not driving well. I want to play today. And now I'm 6 miles from the station. During the day, I got to, you know, watch my P's and Q's to get there. A lot of blind turns. At night, I'm like, I can see their headlights coming. We're zooming.
It's tough for a volunteer organization to get a truck out in 5-6 minutes.
Sure.
I mean, you're probably looking at.
But if you have paid people on house, there's no excuse.
Oh no. But you know, when you're volunteer side though, I mean, you know, they're coming from home.
They're leaving mama.
Were they dressed? When you know, were they fully dressed for the conditions outside?
Hey, I left the house one night, and then after the call, I got shocked. The joke was on them. I wasn't nothing on her, them sweatpants. They were surprised.
I mean, your vehicle. I mean, is it wintertime? Is there frost on your windows?
Big pet peeve.
I mean, it's the volunteer side's tough, and I just don't think.
I hate to beat up on volunteers because you're like, hey, we get it that you're trying.
Yeah.
You know, and when I said that, it may have been not.
Oh no.
framed it correctly.
I still volunteer.
You know,
And love doing it. I won't stop doing it.
You got a problem, dude.
But I
He's
do. I
addicted.
need rehab. I'm gonna be that prick shows up rehab. I got this issue. I like going down the road riding backwards in a truck, and my foot has this shake when I hear that cue, and then we clear an intersection, and that horn, that Grover's just sounding. I get this tick in my foot, and sometimes I drive and I still get it, and so the cab of the truck's hopping a little bit.
But wait a minute. He says you're addicted.
I'm addicted. Yeah.
Yeah, he says you're addicted.
Yeah, I know.
He's got to go to
I'm
therapy.
gonna show
Wait
up
a
to
minute.
AA, and they're gonna be like,
Wait a minute. This guy drives how far?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy's literally got a ladder
Like
truck
when he
behind
said
his
I
Yeah.
need to go to rehab, like my first thought in my mind was that movie Half Baked, where he goes up and and Dave Chappelle, best comedian out there, hands down. Just I'm here, I smoke marijuana, and Bob Saget gets up. Have you ever sucked dick for crack? I have. And, Dave Chappelle just leaves with his tail tucked between his legs, like because everyone's telling him that's not a real addiction, and he just disappears. And it's just like one of the greatest movie scenes ever. Because I think I really want to. I need to find out now if that was ad lib, because Dave Chappelle in that movie, when that scene happened, he was just like, "What the hell just happened?" and left.
We were talking about addiction.
I know. That's
And
what
he
I'm
went
talking
and
about.
he talked about a dick.
Yeah, and whoa.
I'm
On a
talking about
P-
addiction.
On a PG note, we're not the one that owns a ladder truck.
It's a business expense.
I know.
A literal fire station.
That's why
in
I'm
the
saying
backyard.
addiction. One of us is going to end up at one of these meetings, and we're going to be talking about our addictions, the fire service, and then Bob Saget's ghost is going to get up and tell us.
I get it.
All right, you're on the page.
I understand.
I don't think you were.
I am. I'm here.
I don't think he's tracking.
No,
Are we at least in the
he's
same
still
chapter?
We're on exactly. We're in the same chapter. We're just not on the same page.
Well,
We're good.
What would you do if I told you that there may be a tractor drawn in the future? A tiller. At home.
I need training.
You're not addicted like us. You're here, but you're like 3 chapters behind us.
Okay, whatever.
Now we're comparing addictions.
Yeah, now we're
Of love of the job. It's not a bad addiction to have.
No, it's not.
No.
There's many worse out there.
I always
This
tell,
one pays back dividends, though.
Hey, if you don't love it, you're not going to do it.
That's right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I tell Christy all the time, I'm like, there are far worse things I could be doing than smoking cigars and going to fires. She's like, you're right. I said, yeah, you gotta count your blessings, young lady. She does, I think, for most days.
It's a huge responsibility we have, though, because I mean there is that inherent trust that people just have for firemen. Like,
Yeah, you watch a TV commercial, it's every commercial. You see a print ad, there's firemen, medications, hey, Firehouse subs or
people will literally run up to you and hand you their kid, and
Don't
have
know.
complete and total trust in you,
Yep.
and they have no idea. They've never met.
Do you think they do
before.
that to cops? Your son-in-law and your son are both
yeah,
policemen, right?
They need heroes too.
Jesus. 10,000 out-of-work comedians, and here you are.
I understand.
Well, man, we've been going at this a little while. We like to always end this with what we like to call words of wisdom. So we'll just go around and we'll kind of wrap this all up in a neat little ball. I got to tell you, before we start to close this out, what a great time to sit down and talk about this. Off the cuff conversation, not knowing what anybody's really going to say is always fun for me. Because hell, nobody knows what I'm going to say. I say some pretty ate up shit, but we have to again thank some people that help us out immensely, and that's Mikey Hillman over at First In Leather. Firefighter owned, firefighter crafted. He's got a lifetime replacement on his leather work. So radio straps, helmet fronts, whatever you need, he can get it. If you use code BOX1971 at checkout of $50 or more, you get 10% off. Crestar firefighting equipment with nozzles and couplings, so on and so forth. Seek Thermal Imagers. We've already mentioned Seek, but what a great partner they are, making the unseen seen. Seek is, if it's sleek, it's got to be Seek. Firehouse Innovations, our good buddy Mike Perrone, who has dubbed Eddie WV.
Yes, sir.
WV. How you doing?
Those meatballs, though.
Those meatballs were banging. Mike Mike owns Firehouse Innovations Corporation. Over 2,300 doors in use today in the United States. More coming out every day. We are a proud authorized trainer for Mike. We utilize 2 multi-force doors, the crush door prop and the HT175. Old Pappy's Tool Lube. Don't be a fool. Lube your tool. This is a great tool lube to protect your tool. Thompson Multimedia. If you can imagine, David Shooter Thompson over at Thompson Multimedia can do it. Decals, wraps, awards, trophies. Your imagination is absolutely the limit. And lastly, Sterling Rope, with providing the first and best bailout equipment in the fire service, servicing big cities that you may have heard of, like the little-known department in New York State called FDNY in New York City, as well as Baltimore. Baltimore just took delivery of 3,000 bailout kits for their firemen. And that's one thing that I will say is that if you think that bailout is not for you, if you have to ever jump out of a second-story window and you're not prepared for that or not trained on it, and the sugar has turned to shit, you're going to wish you had spent some time and maybe a little bit of budget money preparing those that could have to do that to get out of a bad environment. And Sterling Rope, we are absolutely pleased to have them as a partner and to provide us with the best bailout systems in the world. So, Matty P., in English the best you can you tell us your words of wisdom as we close out this podcast from the project of Greek Island in the undisclosed location in the state of West Virginia?
I like Project Greek Island a bit.
Yeah.
My words of wisdom, I'd have to say, one thing that's always stuck with me is especially now being with the Box 1971, is let no man's ghost return to him saying that his training failed him. That right there alone for a lot of people should just speak volumes. Had something else there. It was right there.
Stay off 7th Street in Miami.
7th Street's a wonderful street. Visit Cuban Crafters. Other things there, too. It's a great time. But anyways, training, it never stops. It doesn't matter if you're reading a book, the book of Andy, Andy Fredericks, all of his writings compiled together. I just got a nice book for Christmas. Started reading.
Oh, you can read?
Oh, yeah. You got it for me, actually. Vincent Dunn.
Oh, yeah, My Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started diving into that. And there's been several more throughout the years. And there's stuff I've always took out of them. But you just never stop learning. You stop learning, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Others around you for failure. I don't want to do that.
You know, something funny about Vincent Dunn is his videos are amazing. He's iconic, but he would always, hello, I'm Vincent Dunn. And he would always say that, and then he'd say, today I want to talk to you about the leading cause of death for firefighters. And it might be building collapse, and then the next video would be flashover. But it was always the same thing. And Phil has that down to a T. So the next time you're with him, you need to be like, hey, let me hear Vinny.
I'll do it.
Well, Boone, what do you got?
It's really, really simple. The next time you're at your firehouse, wherever it may be, whether it be career, volunteer, it doesn't matter. Walk in, look in that mirror, ask yourself, why am I here? If you can't answer that, you probably shouldn't be there. It's that simple. I don't know the other way to say it.
It's a fair point.
I mean, if you can't answer that question, probably shouldn't be there. You're probably there for the T-shirt and the pager and the red lights in your vehicle or whatever it may be.
Those T-shirts, some of them are banging, though.
They are.
Well, you can join Firehouse Shirts Club or something if you need them sent to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Eddie, what do you and your little mustache have to say?
You were talking about it looking good and being big earlier.
Well, I mean,
so you got to make up your mind.
Compared to what at the table?
Very true. Very true.
Right.
A lot of great mustaches. Like I said earlier, when you take this job as a fireman, you won the lottery. It is the best job in the world, and so, love this job, master this job, truly be a master of your craft. And Jeremy, I'll quote something I've heard you say a lot: Anybody can pick low-hanging fruit. Be the guy that knows the history of why we do what we do. Be the guy that goes above and beyond to know the equipment and tools we use, and be the best that you can possibly be, not just for you, not just for your department, but for the fire service and the community as a whole.
Sure. Well, Bat-len Chief, you haven't said a whole ton. I hope you're going to impart some good Bat-len Chief wisdom
Okay.
on us.
So, for us older guys out there, I think, the words of wisdom is listen to your younger guys if they come up to you and if they have an idea. Eddie's came up to me several times. Hey, I want you to check out this Denver load. Let me tell you all about it. And what do you think that's something maybe we can implement here? And I look at Eddie and I was like, all right, show it to me. Let's do it. Let's load this hose up, pull it, and understand that this guy here he's watching these videos. He's trying to get to learn more about the fire service. And if he has an idea, don't think, well, that's not how we do it. Back in the days, it was just keep doing it this way. No, see what they got, and it could be better than what we have traditionally, back in the past. So, and these younger guys, and you take out on these calls or something like that, and you're an officer in that seat, maybe step out of the truck and say, you know what, I want you to run this scene. I'm just going to kind of hang out here, and I want to see what you can do. Just do it. Have trust in these young guys. I know it's going to be hard for us older guys sometimes. Like, oh, they're young, they don't know, but they do have good intentions, and they do, and they learn this stuff. And so, my thing is listen to them and see what they got, see what kind of input they have, and it could be better for the fire service.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty deep. I like it. Not bad. You get those fucking chief glasses on your head, though. I feel like we're gonna sit down and do a budget in 5 minutes.
With what he said there, I kind of have to agree with a lot of what he said. It's, with that being said, it helps the younger guys coming in to make them feel like they're helping an organization. One day, that young guy will be the old guy.
Yep.
So if our older guys, well, we talked about it earlier, the senior guy, if we're not allowing our younger guys to be part of the organization, how can we expect them to step up later in life?
How can we expect the organization to be sustainable?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Eddie said, probably beat them down, build them back up, be a part of something greater and bigger.
Yep.
Leave it better than you found it.
I don't think it means beat the probies up to where they're the only ones doing the dishes and
No,
mopping the floors.
no.
I think it means that, hey, this is your job and you got to earn your keep, and we're going to be here with you. We're not just going to stand back, drink a Coke, and watch you, but you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to do some things that maybe you just don't know a whole lot about. And I think that's one thing that as older people we take for granted is that the younger members may not know that we don't use Dawn dish soap on apparatus. They may not understand why we don't hit the wheels as soon as we get back from a call, or a lot of these things are taught over time, and it's upon us to do that. I think we have to take charge of our own house before we can look into anybody else's. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Yep.
And that probie culture, it gets these young guys' egos out of the way so that they can learn.
That's right.
That they can really take it in.
Takes down their walls.
Right.
Yeah. Well, David Goggins said, "Don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done. Everyone fails sometimes, and life isn't supposed to be fair, much less bend to your every whim. You must recognize what you are about to do, highlight what you do not like about it, and spend time visualizing each and every obstacle that you can." Friends, it has been a pleasure to sit down with each and every one of you, enjoy a good cigar, some good spirited conversation. This has been the Halligans and Half Wheels podcast, brought to you by Box 1971. Remember, train hard. We're all they have.